My boyfriend demanded that I pay for the $600 check for his birthday party, even though he literally didn't tell me about this in advance and was just expecting me to pay for it right there on the spot. So I decided the very next day to break up with him, as I felt completely used and humiliated in the worst way possible, resulting in some of my friends calling me selfish and saying that I'm the jerk. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Let's get started. Okay, so my boyfriend planned a birthday dinner for himself at this kind of pricey restaurant. He invited a big group of like 12 people, mostly his friends and his cousins. Now, I didn't have a say in the guest list or the place, but I was happy to be there for him. Now, I've always had a bit more money than him, and I honestly don't mind covering small things here and there. I paid for his birthday cake, and I even got him a gift that I knew he would love. Now, I was fully planning on paying for his meal, and that felt really fair to me. But when the check came for over $600, which is way too high even for me, he just looked at me and said, "You've got it right." And he said this in front of everyone. No warning, no heads up. He didn't even ask me, like he almost said this as if he was expecting it. And I was so completely caught off guard. I quietly told him I wasn't comfortable paying for everyone, and he got super cold and a bit mad at me. He said I was making a scene, even though I barely said anything. And you know what? Some people at the table looked just as confused as I felt. Well, I paid for his dinner, I left money for the cake, and then I went home. And I even cried in the Uber because I felt so used. He then texted me saying that I embarrassed him, and I told him it wasn't okay to put me in that position without even asking first. And you know what? The following day, I broke up with him. And now some of his friends are messaging me, calling me selfish. Right now, I feel awful, but I also feel like I was treated like a walking wallet. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, your boyfriend is super toxic. So let me get this straight. This guy plans his own birthday party. He goes to this really fancy and expensive restaurant. He leaves you out of all of the planning, and then he tries to be like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna pay for everything, right?" Like, I don't know about you, but $600 is way too much for anything like that. Like, I bring a little bit extra in case it does cost more, but I don't know anyone who's got like $600 just laying around in their wallet where they're like, "Oh yeah, I could pay for it, don't worry about it." Like, holy crap, your boyfriend is awful. He seriously sprung this on you in front of everyone. Like, dude, what is happening right now? The original poster actually says in the comment section of this post that this day was when they finally realized that their boyfriend was using them, and it kind of made them reflect on how much that was happening in their relationship. So truly, I think this was a good thing. I think breaking up with him was like the best option for you, because what this guy expected of you was crazy, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My ex broke up with me and took my dog with me, so I got revenge by clearing out our joint bank account and simply waited, knowing that she would come back to me begging to get any of that money back, resulting in her exchanging the money for my dog. Here's how I did it. So my ex and I have been having a really hard time lately. She decided she wanted to go back to her ex and has been a jerk ever since then. We broke up, and now she wants everything including the dog, which is, by the way, the very dog that she never even wanted in the first place. And sure, she loves the dog too, but she never walked him, she hated cleaning up his little surprises here and there, and literally just never put the legwork in. I wanted the dog, plus I trained him and paid for professional training, so I took responsibility for him, and we've been buddies ever since then. Well, the problem is that she wants to move out and wants half of everything. We weren't even married, so it's like, what are you talking about? Anyways, the house is a rental, but I always paid for it, and I was living here before we even started dating. So no, not today, girl. She also wanted to move in with her ex because he lives with his parents, but also not today. So what did she do, you might be asking? She managed to get inside without being seen by the cameras, since she knows the dead angles, and got into the backyard and called for the dogs. But it's like, how dumb do you have to be to hide from the cameras but then scream his name? Like, the cameras also record sound, idiot. So I just went to the police station, and they said they couldn't do anything because we are not married, and there's no evidence that we actually broke up or that she entered the house illegally. So I went to her parents' house looking for the dog, you know, since she didn't reply to my messages, and my buddy actually heard me and immediately started barking and trying to come in my direction. But her mom didn't want to open the door completely, so he couldn't get to me, and even closed the door mid-conversation, so I couldn't get the dog. But you know what? No worries. We had a joint bank account with some savings that we both invested in, even though I invested 80% or more, and we had agreed to split it 50-50. So no dog, no money. I then transferred all that money into a crypto wallet, and I waited 2 days. Well, all of a sudden, she remembered my number and asked what happened to the money. But I told her I invested it in crypto, but I could could cash it out, and then I gave her a choice. She could choose between getting the money back or keeping the dog. And you know what? Suddenly she agreed to give me back my dog. And so she did. So thankfully that's taken care of. And I also made sure that there are no more dead angles at my home, because you better believe I don't want her showing up anytime soon. Wow, your ex is a piece of garbage. Like seriously, she probably only took the dog out of spite just to try and like get back at you in some way. And that is so messed up. You really did not deserve that. So good for you for like negotiating things down and making sure she really wanted to make that choice. Because you can obviously see her true colors the second money was on the table. Because obviously that's all she ever really wanted. Am I the jerk for not carpooling with my coworker anymore after she was disrespectful and extremely late every single time? Because now she's talking bad about me to all of our teammates at work, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. About 7 months ago, I started working at a company where I met a teammate who lives on the same road I take to work. For reference, it takes about 45 minutes without traffic for me to get there. Well, we started carpooling, where I would be at her house at nearly 7 o'clock in the morning. However, she would usually still be asleep by the time I get to her house. So, because I did not like being late for work, I started calling her 15 minutes earlier just so she would get ready. However, even then, she would still be late. Mind you, she paid me an agreed amount the beginning of each month. Now, that did not bother me until she started going to work on some days with this other coworker with whom she apparently liked for fun, although he clearly had feelings for her. She would not always tell me when she'll be coming with me, and I had to call her every morning, which I did not like doing. Moreover, she would not be ready on my days, but then I catch her ready to go early in the morning whenever she has to go with him, which I really did not like. And you know what? It just started bothering me. To add more spice to the story, the dude had an accident and wanted to fix his car, so she would need a ride. Well, she did not tell me that. Instead, she masked it with this little hint of saying, "Oh, I missed you. I think I will be coming with you from now on," which really upset me the most. But now, after that happened, I decided to stop the carpool thing, and I told her that I don't want that to ruin our friendship. She said to me, "What you did is really crappy, and I don't want to be friends with you anymore." To which I just replied by saying, "Yeah, okay, whatever you want." And now, I don't know how the whole situation would be from her point of view, but I can't see in what way she would make me out to be a bad friend, because that's what she told our teammates at work. So please, can somebody give me some insight here? Am I the jerk or is she at fault? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Dude, you are definitely not the jerk. She literally didn't care about you carpooling with her at all. You had to call her every single morning, but then when that boy's picking her up, she's conveniently on time and like ready to go. It's like, what are you talking about? This is so stupid. She's unreliable, and it sounds like she's one of those drama queens where nothing's ever her fault, and if you ever supposedly betray her, she's gonna talk bad about you at the drop of a hat. So I can honestly say, if I had a friend like that, I would drop them to the curb and be like, "Oh, you don't want to be friends anymore? Well, fantastic. I didn't want to put up with this crap anyways. See ya." Because in my opinion, you deserve way better than this, and I think your friend is a spoiled rotten brat. Am I the jerk for buying a mini fridge and locking it up so that I can protect my lunch from getting stolen at work? Because after 5 times of having my lunch stolen, I'm literally at my breaking point and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 34-year-old male and I work in a small office with about 10 people, and we share a communal kitchen including one fridge. Over the past month, my lunch has been stolen 5 times. Not just random snacks, like the entire homemade meals that I bring from home are just completely gone without a trace. It's not just frustrating, it's expensive and messes up my day. I mentioned it a couple of times in the group chat by saying, "Hey, someone's been taking my lunches, please stop." And everyone either ignored it or sent vague messages, saying stuff like, "Oh, that sucks. Some people are the worst." But no one took any responsibility. So I decided to buy a mini fridge and I put it under my desk. Nothing fancy, just enough to hold my meal and a drink. On top of that, I also put a lock on it just for extra peace of mind. And since then, no one has ever stole my lunches. Well, last Friday, one of my coworkers, who we will call Diana for the sake of the story, confronted me during lunch and said it was weird and selfish that I had a personal fridge. She said it made me look paranoid and not part of the team. But I said I was tired of my food being stolen, and this was the only solution that worked. She said I should have just bought stuff I wouldn't care about losing, like snacks or microwave meals, if I was so worried. A couple of others have now made little comments by saying, "Don't let him see your lunch, he might lock it up." Or just say, "We get it, you're special." And I'm starting to feel like the weirdo of the office just for protecting my stuff. So seriously, am I the jerk here or is there something else going on? Because I seriously do not know what to do. Oh my gosh, I think you found exactly who's like stealing your lunch. This Diana lady's clearly the person who did it. Like seriously, for starters, how can no one be like, "Wait a second, this is the 5th time you've lost your lunch? Who's doing it?" Like we need to figure out who's doing that and make it stop. There's only 10 people on the crew, by the way, so it's like, come on, someone's gotta figure out exactly what's happening. That or it's some kind of like organized effort to mess with your only lunch break. Like seriously, what's going on right now? So for Diana to walk up and be like, oh, you look so paranoid. You need to bring stuff you're not afraid of losing. What she's really saying is please bring stuff that I can continue to steal because right now I don't have a lunch. Because in my opinion, Diana sounds really hungry. And I really think it's obvious that she's the one who's actually not part of the team and is just pissed off that she doesn't get a free lunch anymore. An entitled jerk blocks my parking space and decides to get violent the second I tell him to move. So as a result, I decided to get some revenge by taking his information off the internet and applying for jobs on his behalf that he most definitely was not looking to work at. Here's what I did. A few years ago, my mother-in-law flew in from across the country to visit my fiance and I for a week. We live in an apartment in a busy part of downtown Vancouver, and our garage opens into an alley right next to the entrance of a liquor store. And as a result, we are often blocked in by people when trying to get home or even just to leave. We've gotten into a few screaming matches with people before, but this one was my favorite and probably the worst as well. We were coming back pretty late in the evening, maybe at around 9 o'clock p.m., and this guy, who we will call Christopher, had parked right in front of our garage door and went into the liquor store to buy some booze. When he came back out and saw us in our vehicle waiting for him to move so that we could park and be home, he made some snotty comment. And it's the kind of comment that you couldn't hear while still in our vehicle. And then he got into his car. Now we thought he would drive away, but he just sat there, opened up a can of beer and drank it while looking at us and laughing. So I get out of the vehicle, I walked over to him, and I politely, and honestly I said this politely, asked him to move so that we can get inside. Well, he basically responded by telling me to go F myself and that he would do what he wanted. I tried to explain that he was blocking our garage, and I asked him if he could just move up a bit so that we could get in. Well, this escalated really quickly. He got out of the car and got really into my face. Now me, still not wanting to play out this situation in front of my future mother-in-law, stayed calm and just kept asking him to please get back into his car and leave. Eventually he started pushing me, clearly trying to start a fight, so I just called the police. While I was on the phone with them, he had put himself and his face centimeters away from mine. I stepped back and I put my arm out, while still on the phone mind you, and he walked right into it. He then started screaming about how I was hitting him and how he needed police help right now. Because we were right downtown, the police arrived within a minute from when I had made the call, still on the phone with the operator the entire time. Well, as soon as they arrived, he changed his tone and attitude completely. He started telling them a sob story about how I had approached him in his vehicle and said some mean things to him. But luckily, my fiance and future mother-in-law were still in the car and completely backed up my story. He was also parked illegally in front of my parking garage, so the police quickly took my side and demanded that he leave. Now, as he got back into his car, the police noticed his open beer in the console and immediately got him back out of the car and demanded that he perform a breathalyzer test. Now, unfortunately, he had finished the can before getting out, so he claimed that he had found the can on the road and was planning to bring it in for the 5-cent deposit. His alcohol level was below the legal limit for driving, so the police couldn't do anything to charge him with a DUI. The police stayed until he left, but the last thing he did before driving away was throw his business card out the window at me and then say to me, "Oh, you don't know who you're messing with." Well, I picked it up as he was driving away, already starting to plan my revenge, although with no idea of what I could do with his information. The next day, I looked Christopher up, and it turns out that he was a freelance graphic designer. He has his own website with a bunch of his completed projects and his full PDF downloadable resume. So I downloaded his resume and I got to work. At this point, I then started applying for jobs on Christopher's behalf. I had his real phone number, real address, and a real full resume. And you know what? He applied to every McDonald's in the area, every Starbucks, every grocery store, every movie theater, literally any minimum wage job that I could find with a quick and easy application process. I must have applied for like over 80 jobs for him, all using his real phone number and real resume. I kept this up for a week, searching for more jobs whenever I had some free time. Now, unfortunately, I never got to see his face as he started getting callbacks, as he was truly more than qualified for any of these jobs. But I would like to think that for a month or two, he would receive phone calls through the week asking to set up job interviews, thinking that it was for a graphic design work, only to then be told that it was for McDonald's or Wendy's or whatever. But I will say, a few months later, I went back to his website thinking that I'd start the process again, you know, since he pulled that crap in front of my fiance and future mother-in-law, so I was still a bit salty about it. But I was both shocked and satisfied to see that his website had been taken down, or at least moved to a new URL. And I'd like to believe that somehow this is my doing. Okay, this is some solid revenge because I'm sure that guy was losing his mind dealing with all the callbacks. And I love the fact that you did like the whole job route because you could easily just start spamming him like crazy, especially with like political or like religious emails or something like that, or even like really sketchy sketchy emails, if you know what I mean. But you went the route where you know for a fact he's gonna check it and be like, oh, wait a second, maybe this is work. Maybe this is a future job or something like that. Only to then be immediately let down that no, it's definitely not that kind of job because he's getting a call back to work at a fast food joint, which is not a bad job, but I'm sure that's not what he's looking to do. So good for you because this guy absolutely deserved to get shut down in some kind of way. Am I the jerk for blowing up at my parents for something my adult sister did while I was setting up for my husband's birthday? Because right now they're saying that I'm being unfair, but at this point I am so frustrated with their behavior that I seriously am at such a loss. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I have a sister who I will call Amy for the sake of the story, who has always had a difficult relationship with food. Basically, she was bullied as a kid and turned to food for comfort. As an adult, she still struggles with self-control, especially around things that she finds appetizing. Our parents have never set boundaries with her around food, and that's carried into adulthood. She now currently lives with them, and they do all the grocery shopping and cooking. Well, my husband recently had a birthday, and I planned a surprise party. I sent him out of the house for a few hours so that I could set up, and I asked my parents to come and help. Now, I specifically asked them not to bring Amy, as setting up involved putting out snacks, drinks, and a homemade cake with frosting. Well, as you can probably guess, they showed up with Amy anyways, saying it wouldn't be fair to exclude her. I gave her a few small things to do, and specifically asked her not to touch any of the food until the guests arrived. But I was also too busy to keep a constant eye on her. Well, at one point, I went into the kitchen, and I found Amy with the fridge open, eating the frosting out of the mixing bowl, and she had eaten nearly half of it already. As soon as she saw me, she burst into tears and said she only meant to try a little bit, but she couldn't stop. My parents heard us and they came in. My mom then said that it wasn't a big deal since the cake was untouched, and I still had enough frosting for a crumb coat, but I had planned to do specific cake decorations, and now there wasn't enough frosting. I didn't have the time or ingredients to make more. My dad suggested going to the store to buy a tub of pre-made frosting, saying that it was basically the same thing, but I explained my husband tries to avoid a lot of the ingredients found in store-bought frosting, and he just wouldn't want that. My dad then said, well, let's just not tell him since he wouldn't even know the difference. And honestly, that suggestion was super frustrating to me. I told my parents that they couldn't convince me that this was no big deal, and that they had allowed this by not setting boundaries with Amy's binge eating and by bringing her to set up. They told me to back off and be more sensitive to my sister, and that it wasn't her fault, but I responded by saying that I was more angry at them because at least Amy felt bad while they were just trying to downplay the situation. They then got upset and said it wasn't fair to blame them for Amy's choices, and that she was an adult and they can't control her. They also said they were trying to help by giving suggestions, and that I'm being stubborn by shutting all of them down. They ended up leaving, and now they're giving me the silent treatment, even though Amy has apologized for eating the frosting. So am I the jerk for involving them in all of this? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, no, you are not the jerk here because they brought Amy in the first place. You specifically told them, hey, don't bring her along. I don't want to deal with that. I know how she is, and I don't want that right now. You literally just wanted help setting up for a birthday party, and they completely ruined it. And sure, this is Amy's fault if you really get down to it, but it's absolutely also the parents' fault because they didn't do anything about this sooner. So no, you're not the jerk because what your parents did, in my opinion, is unacceptable. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my sister the wedding dress I bought, even though I'm not getting married anymore? Because right now she's calling me selfish, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 29-year-old female, and I was supposed to get married last year, but my fiance and I ended up breaking things off a few months before the wedding. Now, this was mutual, there was no drama, just a realization that we weren't compatible long term. The thing is, I had already bought myself a wedding dress custom made that cost me nearly $4,000. And trust me, I know that's a lot, but I paid for it entirely myself, and it meant a lot to me at the time. After the breakup, I packed it up and I put it in storage. I haven't been ready to sell it or do anything with it yet, as it is still an emotional thing. Well, here's where it gets really messy. My younger sister recently got engaged, and we're not super close as we are kind of different people, and she's always been a bit entitled if I'm being completely honest. She came over a few weeks ago, saw the dress when we were organizing my storage closet, and actually asked if she could have it for her wedding. When she said this, I kind of laughed and said, no, that's mine. But when I said that, she got annoyed. She said to me, but you're not even getting married. You're just gonna let it rot in a box. I told her again, no, it's personal to me, and even though I'm not using it now, I'm not giving it away. Now, you might be thinking she would stop at this point, but no, she just kept on going. She asked if she could buy it at a discount, but I told her no, I wasn't ready to sell it. And it's here that she threw an absolute fit. She called me selfish and said I was being dramatic over a dress. Well, our mom is now involved, and she thinks I should give it to her as a gesture of sisterly love, and because according to her, it's going to waste. But I honestly feel like she's only asking because she doesn't want to pay for one herself and she's not exactly struggling financially. So now I have my sister and my mom acting like I'm heartless and petty for not handing it over, but it feels like a boundary I just simply want to keep. So am I the jerk for refusing? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated. Wow, dude, I'm blown away. Your family's super toxic. I just can't imagine someone being so heartless and entitled to be like, oh, you're not using it. It's clearly going to waste. Give it to me at a discount, please. Like, dude, what is going on right now? This is still your wedding dress after all. Just because you're not using it now doesn't mean you won't in the future or something like that. This just really sucks in my opinion. Like, the way she's acting is just super entitled, as if she's supposed to get that now that you're not using it. So to me, it kind of makes sense why you're not super close with her. But honestly, no, you are not the jerk. Your mom and sister are completely in the wrong. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would have made the exact same decision. My best friend betrayed my trust by hooking up with and sleeping with my ex-boyfriend while also trying to hide it from me. And even though she stood by my side and watched my life fall apart because of that man, she's now actively pursuing him, claiming that he's changed ever since he ruined my life. And now I'm honestly so shattered that I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying I feel like I'm in on some kind of sick joke. I don't even know how to process this because the two people I trusted the most completely betrayed me, and one of them is standing here acting like I should be happy for her. Let me explain. My ex and I broke up a year ago after I found out that he had been cheating on me for months. And not just with one girl, but he actually had an entire rotation. When I finally dumped him to the curb, I was shattered. But at least I had my best friend, who we will call Emily. She was furious at him, called him a narcissistic jerk, swore she'd never even look in his direction again, and she was the one who told me I deserve so much better. Well, fast forward to last week and Emily started acting off. She was distant and she was canceling plans. She was taking forever to text back, and when she did, she was really dry. I figured maybe she was stressed or dating someone new, but something in my gut told me that she was hiding something. But then a mutual friend casually mentioned how she saw her at a bar with my ex, and it was just the two of them together. And at that point, my stomach dropped. So I texted Emily immediately. I said to her, "Were you with my ex the other night?" It took her hours to reply, but then she hit me with, "Yeah, I ran into him. It was totally random. We just caught up for a second." And I'm thinking to myself, that is BS. At this point, I knew something was up. So I decided to do some digging. And that's when I found out the real story. And of course, not from Emily, but from someone else. Apparently, she had been seeing him for weeks. It wasn't some random run-in. She had been sneaking around, sleeping with the same guy who destroyed me while pretending to be my best friend. I was shaking with rage when I confronted her, and I didn't even give her time to weasel her way out of it. I just looked her dead in the eye and I said, "How long have you been sleeping with my ex?" When I said this, her face went pale. At first, she tried to fake innocence and act like, "What are you talking about?" So I told her everything that I knew. She then opened and closed her mouth like a fish, and then finally let out a sigh and said, "I was going to tell you." And it's like, oh, you were going to tell me, were you? Like when? After the honeymoon phase? After you got engaged? Or hey, maybe when you needed a bridesmaid? Then she hit me with, "Well, I know this is going to sound crazy, but he really has changed." And when she said that, I almost started laughing. Changed? The guy who lied to my face every day for months? The same guy who swore he was faithful while texting other girls in my bed? That guy changed? I then asked her if she actually even cared about me, about how she held me while I cried over him, about how she ranted about how disgusting he was, and how she swore she would never forgive him either. But you know what she said to me? "Well, I do care about you, but people make mistakes." At that point, I couldn't even look at her and I decided to walk out. And now she's blowing up my phone, apologizing, saying that she never meant to hurt me and that she didn't plan on this to happen and that love is complicated. But you know what? No, lust is complicated. Betrayal is complicated. This is just disgusting. I don't think I can even look at her the same way again, but we've been friends since we were in preschool. This really hurts so much that I don't know how I can go on or if I can even forgive her. So seriously, how do I get the picture of them together out of my mind? Because right now I don't know what to do. Wow, this is unbelievable. Here's the thing, I don't think anyone could honestly expect their ex to never get with anybody else, but I think you can expect that the person who helped you get through that disaster wouldn't then go behind your back and start sleeping with the guy who ruined your life. Like seriously, that is so messed up, it's not even funny. That is so toxic and such a massive act of betrayal, I honestly would have a hard time ever trusting them again. And that really is the biggest thing you can take out of this. This lady is not loyal, she is not really your friend, and she is just happy to go behind your back, find this guy, and somehow get with him without you knowing about it. And this is all despite the fact that she knew exactly how he treated you. And this wasn't something that happened long ago. This literally was a year ago. So I don't know about you, but if my friend was like, "Yeah, this one girl ruined my life," I wouldn't then turn around a year later and be like, okay, let's start dating. It's like, no, I would not do that. I would avoid her like the plague. I would never come back. So yes, you have every right to be pissed off because this lady is absolutely not your friend because the way she betrayed you is completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My classmate's entitled mom demands that she gets a scholarship just like me and my other friends, claiming that she deserves it way more than we do, even though this entitled friend didn't put in any of the work that we did. And I'm honestly so annoyed that she got her way. Here's what happened. To start things out, I went to Catholic schools from 1st to 12th grade. When I was in middle school, there was this local charity and volunteer organization that would come twice a week and hold an after-school tutoring program in our school. Every week, 2 days a week, they had volunteers come and help students with homework. And I decided to join and went for the entirety of my middle school years. Every year, they would give select 8th graders high school scholarships. These scholarships were those who planned on attending a private high school and met the requirements. When I was in 8th grade, me and one of my friends, who we will call Melissa, were some of the students that they selected. I felt so lucky that I got the scholarship, as it took a huge weight off of my parents. I knew I wanted to continue my education at a private high school, and this was the only way I would be able to, since we couldn't afford all of it ourselves. However, there was this one girl in the program who didn't get the scholarship. Let's call her Serena. Her mom worked as a secretary at the front office of the elementary and middle school that I went to at the time, and they were both pretty upset, but especially Serena's mom. Serena has always hated my guts for some reason and was always jealous of me. She and I ended up going to the same high school together. Some of my other classmates from middle school also went there, and for a while I had the idea that her parents were paying for her education out of pocket, since she was one of the students that didn't get a scholarship from the organization. But then I found out that wasn't the case. During my freshman year of high school, all the students that were awarded scholarships were invited to have breakfast with their sponsors as well as volunteer for a little bit. The breakfast was on a school day, which meant that we would have to miss the morning half of our classes and get excused absences. A couple of days before the event, we were in class and Serena was reading an email on her laptop. The boy sitting next to her got curious and asked her what it was about. She then said, "Oh, it's a scholarship that I got." She said that loud and clear as if she wanted me to hear that. When I heard her say that, I was a bit surprised, but then decided to think nothing of it. I just ignored it and I brushed it off. When the day of the event came and I got to the building where it was being held, I saw Serena there. I was filled with so much confusion. Then we found out the truth from a couple of close friends and acquaintances. Serena's mom couldn't accept that her daughter didn't get the scholarship, and so she went into Karen mode and sent the organization an entire email angrily ranting about why her daughter deserved the scholarship. She even had the nerve to demean my friend Melissa, who I mentioned earlier, saying it wasn't fair that she got it because she was only in the program for 1 year while Serena had been in it longer. Serena's mom also had the audacity to tear me down in her email, essentially saying I didn't deserve the scholarship, all because of a vacation I had taken outside of the country for spring break that year. And this was something that my parents had saved up for a while so that we could be able to do it. We also found out that the principal was in on her little scheme and helped her out, and I was honestly appalled to learn about all of that. One of the volunteers from the organization, whom I had a close friendship with, told my mom that Serena's mom and the principal kept bombarding her and the sponsors with angry emails. As a result, they ended up giving Serena a scholarship, basically so they can be satisfied and get Serena's mom and the principal to leave them alone. It was a last resort decision. Now, when I found that out, I was so disappointed. The students who got the scholarship put their blood, sweat, and tears so that they could achieve it. Serena acted as if she earned it fair and square, which filled me with rage. But at the end of the day, at least I can say I didn't have my mom and my school principal beg for me to have it just so I could get it instead of earning it on my own merits. Yeah, people like that are super weird in my opinion, because if Serena wanted that scholarship, then she should have worked harder or done better. But based on what you described, it sounds like she didn't do any of that, and that honestly is her own fault and not yours. My idiotic new boss denies me the opportunity to take on more jobs so that I can help out my coworkers. But now, after those jobs haven't been completed, my boss is now looking for a scapegoat, claiming that these jobs should have been done, despite the fact that I said I would take care of it earlier in the year. So, deciding that enough was enough, I went ahead and called out her idiotic behavior, putting my boss on the spot and exposing her for the moron that she truly is. And I've honestly never felt better about putting anybody in their place in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background before I share the story, the names in this story have been changed just to protect myself from retaliation because my boss is that petty. Anyways, at the end of December, my old boss stepped down due to going to school, and our new boss took over. All of us were nervous as our old boss was not exactly the greatest, and the replacement was a stickler for the rules. I noticed an issue with some of how the tasks were assigned the first week of January. The new boss had assigned someone we will call Eric, a task that was impossible for them to complete due to how tall they are, as we are required to take photos of equipment gauges for the client, and said gauges were out of Eric's reach. Now, I called the new boss in regards to the issue and informed them that I would gladly make sure the task would get done so that the company would not get fined for incomplete jobs. Well, said boss told me not to do the task and that Eric should be able to handle it. So I said okay, I put the phone down, and I never thought of this issue ever again. Well, 3 days ago in the app we used to communicate as a team, our boss was furious. Several tasks had not been completed and they needed reasons as to why. If you remember back in the start of January, I'd asked my boss if I could take the tasks of someone else's off of their hands just to make sure that they were done. And ironically, one of said weekly tasks was the one I offered to do. The others were not done as everyone had been shuffling around due to the termination of a coworker, and not everyone had been trained on the tasks that they were asked to complete. Normally, I avoid even responding to posts or comments on said app, and I only have it to grab my work schedule and then log out of it for the rest of the week. I even have the app's notifications disabled. However, she was blaming the team for not getting the task done and looking to scapegoat people. So for the first time, I decided to just let go and call her hypocritical self out. I responded stating, "At the beginning of January, I offered to do said task for you, but you told me not to. I told you why I should do the task, and you still told me not to do it. And now, because it's not done, you are in a state of panic. So you know what? This is not my task, meaning that it's not my problem." Well, my boss is now maliciously ignoring my calls and avoids eye contact with me completely. Everyone, including the client, knows that I offered to complete said task, and she literally has nothing to say to defend herself. So perhaps next time she will listen to what I have to say, because it might just save her and everybody else a massive headache. Yes, I love this story so much. The original poster decided that enough was enough and that this is something you just simply cannot ignore any longer. So them deciding to stand up for themselves and put this idiot in their place, in my opinion, is brilliant, because I have dealt with managers like this, and let me tell you something. If you've never been in this scenario, it really sucks. They say one thing and then they turn around and try and act like it's your fault, all because you listen to their faulty advice. And that is so obnoxious. Honestly, it is so bad. So seriously, I love the fact that you did this, because this boss sounds like a complete idiot, and they definitely deserve to be shut down. My husband keeps using what my brother did against me, and after hearing this over and over again, I'm honestly at my breaking point, because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my brother-in-law started dating my sister-in-law's best friend about 9 months ago. She's basically family to my in-laws, and that's because she's been around them since she was a kid. She's sweet and just one of those people who gets along with everybody. Over the past 2 years, we became friends and I really love her. A little over 2 months ago, she and my brother got into a huge fight that got physical, and I was horrified when I found out. My husband was sure I'd side with my brother, but I simply couldn't do it. As much as I love him, I couldn't condone what he did. I told her I was sorry, that what he did was wrong, and I would support whatever decision she made. She told us my brother beat her because he thought that she was cheating. A few days later, my brother and I met up, and he told me that she started it by saying some hurtful things and slapping him twice. He said he lost control and slapped her back, and things escalated from there. Now, here's the thing. I don't know what actually happened. I've never brought it up with her because I'm scared that she'll think I'm doubting her or trying to defend my brother. My husband told me that her family encouraged her to press charges, but she refused to do so. Now, I haven't seen her since, but we still talk on the phone sometimes. But the main issue is my husband. He keeps using what my brother did against me. It doesn't matter what we're arguing about, he always brings it back to my brother. If I stay quiet or try to change the subject, he accuses me of defending him. And I swear I don't mean to defend him, but it's exhausting to argue about it every single day. Now, it's important to note that my in-laws and I have never been close. I'm from a different country, and no matter how hard I try, I feel like I'm never good enough for them. They criticize everything. How I cook food, how I still have an accent after all these years. There's always something. Now, I've learned to live with it, but this situation has made it so much worse. I'm almost 2 months pregnant, and I don't want to raise a child in this environment, but asking for a divorce over this feels wrong. At the same time, I can't keep living like this. I feel like I'm being torn apart, and I don't know how to fix it. I know it might sound like I'm exaggerating, but we do argue every single day, and it's honestly so draining. I can't even focus at work anymore because I'm always thinking about what he'll say when I get home. It's like I'm always bracing for the next fight, and I feel like he's using this situation to punish me for not being the perfect wife or fitting into his family's expectations. What should I do? Oh man, this is so weird because you are literally not responsible for your brother's actions. Like, the way your husband's treating you is so mean. Like, seriously, I understand that he's pissed off at him, but this is not your fault. So seriously, the fact that he's treating you like this is honestly so toxic because you do not deserve this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for taking in someone else's DoorDash order that was mistakenly delivered to my house? Because once they came to pick it up, they were incredibly pissed off at me. And right now I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I saw on my camera that someone's DoorDash was mistakenly delivered to my house. Now I assumed that they would come and get it since this happens frequently in my area and it's normally delivered to the house number on the opposite complex. So I waited and I didn't bother to bring it in, even though the weather was bad. Well, about 30 minutes later, I get a bunch of motion notifications on my camera. The bag of food is blowing around on my porch, and I see their drink is about to topple out of the cup holder. It was snowing and windy, so I immediately ran downstairs to get it off my porch before their drinks made a mess all over my grandmother's porch. I placed the food on the desk and I contacted DoorDash support explaining this situation, and they told me to just dispose of it. About 10 minutes later, the man arrived. I was upstairs in bed, so it took me a while to get dressed. I have an ill grandmother and I didn't want to wake her up, but before I could even make it down there, this guy started banging on the door as loud as he possibly could repeatedly. He accused us of drinking from the drink after all of that because the lid was half off of it, and the cup holder had gotten wet from the drink toppling over, even though I explained that we just brought it in to keep it from spilling. After he left, he came back and started taking pictures of our house with the food. So seriously, am I the jerk for taking it in and causing this drama? Or should I have just let it make a mess? It was either going to blow away or just be spilled all over the place, so I took it in. When I checked the label, it said it was only bread in the bag that was blowing away. And also, just to add, I don't normally bring the food in when it's delivered to the wrong house. I just let it sit until they come for it. But because the weather was bad and it was blowing away, and it had been so long, I just brought it in to try and be nice. What should I do? You did not do anything wrong. This guy is a weirdo. He is clearly putting his order in wrong, or putting down the wrong address, and he's too stupid to figure it out. Like, it's not your fault that the DoorDash keeps going to your house. That is literally all on his shoulders. And the fact that he's trying to be like, wow, you drank from my drink, I can't believe it. It's like, no dude, it's not my fault. I brought it in to try and be nice. I easily could have just thrown it away, but I decided to bring it in. And it's like, you easily could have just thrown it away and been like, yeah, I don't know what they're talking about. So no, you're not a jerk at all because this guy was being so weird. And the fact that he was so aggressive about this, in my opinion, shows how guilty this guy truly is. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for not loaning my sister $5,000 after her and her husband basically said they need that to get by? But I'm concerned they're not going to use it for the things that they actually need it for. And now I'm worried that I might be in the wrong for not giving them that money because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, I'm a 38-year-old male. My sister, who we will call Ruth for the sake of the story, is a teacher, and my brother-in-law, who we will call Bill, was a police officer. They have 3 kids, 2 are now in college, and 1 just turned 15 years old. In 2019, Ruth was diagnosed with colon cancer. She's in remission but keeps getting spots forming on her liver, and thankfully, she just finished another round of successful treatment. Fast forward, and in 2020, the vaccine was released, and both my sister and Bill were some of the first people able to take the vaccine. And that's because both the district and police department required vaccines so that they could go back to work. And so my sister got it, and Bill refused it first, and the department kept giving extensions for officers to get vaccinated, so Bill waited till the last minute to get the vaccine. And while he still missed the deadline by a day, he still ended up getting it. Now, everyone is free to believe whatever they want. It is a free country. Now, Bill has a GED, he has 0 to fall back on, constantly brags about only having a GED, and making over $100,000 as a cop. In 2020, he had 1 daughter graduating high school, moving on to university, a 2nd daughter going into high school, who today is in community college, and a 3rd in middle school. And mind you, Ruth had cancer throughout all of this. He didn't really give any thought to all of that or any possible repercussions by losing his career. Well, the department fires Bill. Bill files a lawsuit which is ongoing today, and a similar class action lawsuit was thrown out by a judge last year. From 2021 to about 2023, Bill collected unemployment, did not get a steady job, was practically on vacation for 3 years, borrowing money from my family, never asked for money until about 2 weeks ago, and we had no idea if Bill asked on his side of the family for loans, since we were under the assumption that he didn't, as he carries himself in high regard with his side. Ruth and Bill's family have been able to live a lifestyle where they have never needed anything. They've always spent money like crazy, and it didn't stop after Bill gave up his career due to a vaccine, continued borrowing money from my family, and kept going out, spending money and going on vacations, eating fast food. I mean, it was wild. They never once stopped living as if everything was still okay. And now when it's all said and done, they are about $40,000 in debt to my family. Bill got lucky through a loophole and sheer dumb luck as he reapplied and was accepted drafted into background investigations to be reinstated as a cop. Anyways, Ruth sent me and my younger sister a text message asking each of us for $5,000. She needed this so that her husband wouldn't have to dig into his 401k with penalties, refinance their home with high interest rates, and so Bill wouldn't damage his credit. But here's where things kind of get messy. I replied by saying, I don't have it, but you shouldn't be worrying about that. Focus on resting and just feeling better. My assumption is they need the money to pay off the mortgage, so that way the background investigators don't find any financial issues, which goes against the department's values while being hired. Now, Bill, ever since he entered our family, has been an absolute jerk. He dislikes some of the jokes we make, which can be kind of off color, which are really hard to explain. And sure, there are plenty of examples I could give, but they're mostly inside jokes and jabs with family that definitely have an edge to it that someone might not be used to. Now, my parents retired in September of 2024, so they don't have the money to be loaning anymore. I had several conversations with my parents, my younger sister, as well as my nephew about how Bill is still disrespectful, he's unappreciative, and he's still a complete jerk. And this is all after borrowing so much money. I gave him the benefit of the doubt and I said, maybe Bill just doesn't know about all the money being borrowed, since Ruth was the one that would ask about it. Well, that is until the weekend they asked me for $5,000, and Bill also called my dad to ask for $5,000 too. Now, I had a talk with my parents about Ruth asking me for money, so they expected it. My dad told Bill, look, I don't have it. I'll have to dig into my own 401k for it, and Bill just said, no, that's okay, and that was honestly such a good thing. Had my sister said, we don't have money for food, and my hospital bills are about to go into collections, I would have gifted her the $5,000 without question, but I don't have money to loan to somebody who has been completely irresponsible by giving up his career over a vaccine. So I refuse to give them any amount of money due to Bill being a complete jerk since entering our lives. Anyways, am I the jerk in this situation for not wanting to hand over $5,000? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. This situation kind of screams, oh yeah, they're taking advantage of everybody. Like they really need to sort their stuff out and stop asking everybody and their mother for loans. Because that in my opinion just doesn't seem fair, especially when it sounds like they're not paying anybody back. My entitled friend refuses to pay me back for any of the stuff that her dog ruined at my house. Because after she left her dog unattended for nearly 10 days, locked up in our guest bedroom, that dog literally went to the bathroom everywhere, forcing me to replace my couch, my mattress, and even my carpets. But despite the mounting cost of everything I have to replace, my friend refuses to take responsibility for the utter damage that she caused. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my childhood best friend and I live in different countries, and we have a small tradition where she travels to spend Christmas with me every year. I help with money for plane tickets and she stays at my house where I also provide food. Last Christmas she came, but this time she brought her dog, as she got a puppy in January of 2024. I then asked her if it was already trained and she told me that it was. I also let her know that I don't like pets on my beds or couch and asked if I needed to buy something for her dog to sleep in. Well, she told me the dog will be okay with a pillow beside her bed. I also bought some cleaning supplies and I left it in the guest bedroom that she could use if she needed it. Unfortunately, when she arrived, I noticed that the dog was absolutely untrained. Now, I was trying not to be a jerk about it, and I was just trying to enjoy our time together, but I told her that she needed to take her dog out often because she wasn't doing it. Like, for example, the day she arrived, she said she was too tired and the dog didn't need it. Then on the second day, it was too cold to walk outside. And on the third day, we have plans. So she left the dog locked in the room all day. She was here for 10 days, and the dog was taken outside for walks maybe 5 times. And one of those times was by me, and the other was by my husband. The dog slept on the bed, the couch, and left hairs everywhere, jumping on people all the time, and it was biting. But I started to notice a strong smell coming from the guest bedroom. Well, to make a long story short, the carpet, a couch, and bed mattresses are absolutely ruined by the smell of urine, and it is disgusting. I tried different cleaning methods, but it smells really bad. I then talked to my husband, and we decided that we needed to replace everything. I was then texting my friend, and I let her know that I would need to replace everything because of the strong smell. Well, she stopped replying the moment I told her, and for 2 days she was radio silent, which is weird because we are always texting memes or random stuff all the time. And to be honest, I was waiting for her to apologize for the trouble, but I got nothing from her. Now, this is when I may be the jerk, but I got really mad at her for deciding to ghost me instead of using her big girl words. I texted her a picture of the shopping cart of everything that we needed to replace, and I even told her the total of the stuff her dog ruined and that we needed to buy. And then I asked her how much she thought she could help us out with in terms of like paying back for what she destroyed. Well, she read my message, it went silent for 4 hours, And then she replied saying that I was tacky for asking money from someone that, according to her, was just a guest in my house. It was back and forth with her telling me that she didn't think the smell was that bad because she cleaned everything just like she cleaned her own house, that the dog in her house behaves perfectly fine, so maybe it was just my house. But I told her it smelled really bad. She then asked me, well, if someone goes to your house and a child breaks something, would you be calling them back asking for money? And I responded back by saying, well, I would at least expect an apology. She then says to me, so this is what it's about. You want me to beg for forgiveness for something a dog cannot control? But I just simply told her, well, maybe you should try to not be a horrible dog owner. So seriously, am I the jerk in the way that I handled this situation? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, this is not your fault at all. You are completely justified for being pissed off about this. This lady literally left that dog in a locked room for 10 days and only walked that dog, what, 5 times? It's like, are you kidding me right now? That dog needs to be let out probably like 3 times or more a day. Like, did she really think that dog was gonna be okay as a puppy, locked up in a room with nowhere to go and nowhere to use the bathroom? Like, seriously, this is so messed up. And you know for a fact that she is absolutely guilty of like not doing anything to take care of this. She probably walked out of your house and knew immediately like, oh my gosh, this is really bad. And from the sounds of it, she's willing to ruin your friendship instead of fixing this and being like, oh, I'm sorry, I messed up. Here, let me send you some money. Because yes, she is the jerk in this situation. And the fact that she's not trying to like fix this in any kind of way, in my opinion, shows exactly the kind of person that she is. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for leaving my aunt's house after failing to convince her that she is being scammed? Because right now, my mom's upset with me and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old male, and my mom asked me to talk to my aunt about something. She said that my aunt is being scammed, but it's not a romance scam though. Instead, she's convinced she's talking to her favorite author who needs someone to pay her bills for her while she works on a new book. Mom said that since my aunt has no children of her own, and I'm the closest thing that she has to a son, she might listen to me. Well, I dropped by. I asked how she's doing, and then I told her that my mom told me about what's going on. My aunt muttered something about her meddling older sisters before telling me that she appreciates my concern, but there is nothing to worry about. I told her that her favorite author sold more than 20 million copies in the United States alone and had her works translated into more than 40 languages, meaning that she doesn't need anyone paying her bills for her. And even though I said that, my aunt still wouldn't listen. But I did not immediately give up. I told her I care about her and I don't want to see her scammed, but she insisted that it's not a scam. She just made a bunch of posts on social media about the books, and the author DM'd her asking for money. But I told her that's exactly how these celebrity catfishes operate, and I even showed her examples of it on YouTube, but she refused to watch any of the videos. After half an hour, I said, okay, I'm going home now, see you later. And when my mom asked me why I came home so early, I told her that I love my aunt, but I don't know how I can convince someone who doesn't want to be convinced. She said I shouldn't have given up so easily on someone that I love. Well, fast forward, and I called my aunt and I repeated the point about the number of books the author sold, and she said the author told her that she made bad investments. I then told my aunt that even if that were the case, the authors get advance fees, so they won't starve while writing their books. Considering her favorite author has appeared on the New York Times bestseller list several times, she can probably expect a sizable advance. Then I told my aunt that if she still doesn't believe me since she sees me as a kid, we can go to the bank and talk to the people there, or even the cops. I also told her that I can contact the author. I've looked up her official website and Facebook, so I can message her in order to ask for direct confirmation. Well, my aunt told me not to do anything yet and that she will think about it. I will talk to her later and just give her time to think about it for now. But seriously, am I the jerk in this situation for not staying longer the first time? Because right now, I'm not sure what's gonna happen. No, you're not the jerk here. Your mom is completely wrong. If I had a family member who was not listening to anything I say after half an hour, and they're denying evidence or any kind of like, I don't know, proof that this is a scam, at that point I would be like, okay, whatever, I'm giving up and I'm leaving. And I just can't stand when people are that stubborn, because it's like, think about this for a second. We're talking about a famous author. They've probably made millions of dollars off of all those books. So there's no way in the world they're ever going to you and being like, oh, I need some money, help me pay my bills. Like, no person in media is ever going to go to their fans like that unless they are actually scamming you. And I know we're all thinking of many examples in media and just pop culture who have done that, and it really is unfortunate. So no, you're not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. My dad is constantly getting me sick because he does nothing to prevent spreading his germs. And at this point, I'm honestly frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My father is the kind of person who does not care whether he passes on his bugs to you or not. And mind you, I have a great relationship with him and I love him despite what he does. To provide context, ever since I was a kid, I have suffered from chronic issues with my sinuses. I've had surgery for that, but it just doesn't seem to have worked. Anytime I get a cold, I feel miserable for almost 2 weeks. I become a mucus production machine, and that mucus gets infected, and I end up getting a pretty bad sinus infection that only clears after a course of 10 days of antibiotics and steroids. Every time that goes by, my infections are getting worse in severity and length, and I get approximately 5 to 6 episodes like that every single year. Now here's the real issue. At least half of these episodes are a consequence of my father getting sick and spreading his cold to me. My father gets sick often because he does not seem to care that he gets colds, because his are usually not very bad, and he makes no effort to avoid getting sick. Well, one time when he was sick, instead of telling my mom that he was sick, my father denies getting sick and refuses to go to the doctor. He will not take cold medicine or put on a mask, etc., and he just acts completely normal being around anyone, hence why he's spreading his virus. And then when I get sick, which is very bad due to my nose issues, he does not acknowledge that he passed the virus onto me and claims that I must have gotten the virus from somebody else. I have tried to explain my situation, ask him to please try not to get sick in the first place, and if he is sick, please tell me so that I can protect myself. But even then, he still just does not care. Well, I'm writing this as I have another one of those sinus episodes that honestly is not going away despite medicine, and this has prevented me from sleeping for 3 nights in a row. Now at this point, what options do I have beyond moving out? What do you think of my father's attitude? Am I making this too much of a big deal? Or am I in the wrong for acting the way that I am? What should I do? Oh man, this is so frustrating. There's nothing more annoying than someone who's blatantly sick, being incredibly lazy, and then getting everybody else sick. And it's like, wait a second, I know for a fact I didn't get this from anybody else. And sure, you could get sick from anybody, but seriously, if I'm willing to bet, it probably was the guy who was sick and sniffling all day in your house. So yeah, unfortunately, it sounds like moving out might be your only option, but I know if I was in your shoes, I would be talking to my dad and be like, listen, I love you, but I just can't keep doing this. You getting sick affects me negatively because then I get sick and it is so much worse. And you would think that he would know this after you've had surgery about this, because in my opinion, his attitude is so dismissive, and it's honestly just so unfair that you have to deal with this in the first place. Am I the jerk for leaving my sister-in-law's house on Christmas, all because there was someone there that me and my husband definitely did not want to see? And despite the fact that we tried to do this in a subtle manner, my sister-in-law's husband cussed me and my husband out as we were leaving, and now I am blown away and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I would really like to get some insight from everybody on what happened at our family Christmas. On the 23rd, my sister-in-law had messaged me and told me that they were throwing a small Christmas party, and she told me that her sister-in-law and her in-laws and her parents are all going to be joining them, and they would really like for us to come along as well. Very specifically, she named everybody who was going to be there, and this will be relevant later on. Later that night, I showed my husband the text messages and said it would be really nice if we joined them for Christmas, as his whole family doesn't get along, and it would be nice for his mom to see at least some of the siblings interacting. On Christmas Day, I woke up early to make some things to bring over to their house and wrapped up the gifts that I had prepared for everybody. As we approached their house, we saw a vehicle that belonged to a person that me and my husband both don't get along with, as this is someone we've had major problems with in the past. I told my husband that maybe it's just a car that looks like his, because his sister knows that we would not come over if we knew that this person was going to be there. We decided to walk in and give the gifts and say hi to everybody, and both agreed that if said person was invited, that we would just come up to his sister and brother-in-law and let them know that we are actually going to be leaving. Well, unfortunately for us, he was there, and we didn't want to make a big scene, so I came up to his sister in the kitchen and I said that I'm really sorry that we're leaving, and that if I knew that he was invited, we would have just told her right away that we weren't going to come. And I felt very bad for making the situation uncomfortable. She looked really disappointed but understood and decided to walk us to the door. Now at this point, everything was fine. That is until her husband ran in and started yelling and cussing and calling all of us names. This was pretty out of character for him, but also very inappropriate nonetheless, especially because in my opinion, we didn't do anything wrong by leaving Christmas when we are uncomfortable with being around someone that we don't like, and we wanted to avoid any conflict and not make a scene. Well, he kept screaming and calling us names and telling us that he can invite whoever he wants to his house, which we both never told him that he couldn't. The screaming continued, and his kids, in-laws, and parents all came along to see what was going on, with me and my husband just quietly putting our shoes on. He then slammed the door in our face. So right now I'm curious, does this make me the jerk for leaving Christmas when we were unaware that a person we do not get along with was invited to this as well, especially when his sister went out of her way to text me a list of everybody who is gonna be there, but somehow leaving this person out. What should I do? Okay, this seems really set up in my opinion. It almost seems like they brought that person on purpose just so there would be some kind of confrontation or as some kind of excuse for this brother-in-law to finally freak out on you guys. Like seriously, this seems really sketchy and I don't like what's happening here. Like why would they send an entire list of everybody that's gonna be there, but then conveniently leave out the person who causes a lot of problems in your life? Like that seems super sketchy and I just don't think this has like good intentions. So no, you're not the jerk at all for leaving this party, because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing, regardless of what the sister or the husband had to say about it. I'm worried that I might be overreacting after my dad basically let his girlfriend move in after I said I wasn't okay with it, because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 17-year-old female and I've been upset over the past month since my dad's girlfriend moved in. My parents divorced a few years ago, and since then my dad has started dating a new woman. A few months ago, he asked if she could move in, and he told me he was asking because I was the most important thing to him and he would never allow her to move in without my okay. Now, I have only known her for a little less than a year and I'm going through a lot of stress with the end of high school, so I said I was not okay with it, but that she could move in when I was going off to college. He pushed the question a little more, but eventually said okay. Throughout the next few months, he continuously asked me if she could move in. I continued to listen to his point, but I never changed my mind. I knew that having her move in would be a huge change for me, as I have never had any siblings or permanent residents in my house besides my mom and dad. I don't dislike her, but having my space be invaded and learning to live with someone that I felt like I didn't even know that well was bound to be a stressor. It was also a big deal to me because my life is already changing preparing for college. In my mind, I've been preparing to go off to college for a while, and having something like this happen before that big change has thrown me off. I also didn't want her to move in because I don't like her family. Her youngest son is a handful and hard to deal with, and now comes home from college to my house on some weekends and holidays. Her second oldest is kind of a jerk, even though I don't have to deal with him that much. Her oldest daughter is actually nice, and I do like her, but I really would rather not be associated with her whole family. I'm having a lot of trouble dealing with them being forced into my family because not only do I not like them, but I already have a family. My dad also recently tricked me into coming to her family's Christmas, which she hosted at our house, by telling me that we were going to spend the day together, even suggesting options like restaurants and activities. It felt so strange being the stranger at someone else's Christmas in my own house. I've started to come to the conclusion that I will need to move out because it has caused me a lot of stress to live in this house at this time. But my dad and his girlfriend are acting as if I'm overreacting. It breaks my heart to leave my pets and the house I have memories in, but I'm honestly not sure what else I could possibly do. Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from here. This honestly really does seem very annoying. There's changes happening in your life and it seems like you're not totally receptive to it. And trust me, I completely get that. I understand that you're not willing to let someone else into your house, especially when that person is not your mom. So hopefully this all works out in some kind of way, and hopefully you're able to find some kind of solution. Because while I don't think you're completely overreacting, I do think you have the right to have a steady and stable home. And hopefully something like that can happen in the future. An entitled old jerk loses his mind after I try to let the women standing behind me get off the plane before we do. So I decided to get some petty revenge by not only waiting for everybody to go ahead of us, but also denying this guy any opportunity to pass me up in the process. Here's what happened. So I just landed from my layover and I was in the very back of the plane, second from last row. The back was empty. I had the row to myself, and across the aisle was the older jerk of this story who also had the row to himself, literally watching the news the entire time. And this was the same deal in the last row. Two women each having their own row. Well, we land, the seatbelt sign comes off, and people start to stand. I then stand up and he's still sitting. One of the women stands up and lines up behind me, and that's where I start to hear him go crazy. He says out loud, "Where do you think you're going? No one's getting off yet. Sit down and stop crowding us." The woman apologizes and says, "I'm really sorry, I just need to use the bathroom." He then mutters something unintelligible and just acts like a complete jerk. I then tell her she can go ahead of me, and that's when the guy leapt up and grabbed both seats, physically blocking her from moving. He goes, "No, no, no. We get off row by row. We don't go ahead of people and we don't push and shove. We get off row by row." I then start saying, "Okay, calm down, buddy. It's not that big of a deal." But he just kept repeating, "We go row by row." He brings his guard stance down and she pushes past him. And right then, this guy looks like he's about to keel over from anger. Now the lineup is just me and then him, as well as the other woman behind us who looks disgruntled. So I say, "Okay, buddy, calm down," again, and we just start walking. 2 rows ahead of us is a couple still sitting down, getting their baby packed up. Now they clearly have a few minutes to go before before they're ready. So I stop behind them and I do the same stance that he just did. I say out loud, "You guys take your time." I parked right there and I made sure this entitled old jerk wasn't going anywhere. Now the dad says it's okay and they're going to be just a moment, but I say very loudly, "Oh no, we get off row by row." That's right, row by row. You guys go right ahead. The couple had definitely heard our spat and knew exactly what was going on. And as a result, we waited a solid 3 to 4 minutes until they finally got off. But the fun didn't stop there, because as we got further ahead, I did it again with another woman who was waiting for the flight attendant to bring her bag. This lady was more confused when I insisted that we wait, but she went along with it and I just kept saying very loudly that we get off this plane row by row. Now the first time this entitled old jerk said, "This is stupid," but I just said back to him row by row, and the second time he was silent. But I know for a fact that I certainly wasted a good 5 or 6 minutes of his life, all because he couldn't afford to let those women go ahead of us. I love this story because this is one of those you mess around and you find out. Like seriously, this is not that big of a deal. You're all in the back of the plane as it is, so you know for a fact you're going to be waiting pretty much all day to even get off that plane. So for him to be like, no one's getting ahead of me. It's like, dude, you're not in first class. You're literally in the back of the plane acting like an idiot, holding up 2 women who clearly could have just gone ahead of you and it wouldn't have caused any problems. This guy was acting like he was some kind of VIP. Like, that is so weird. So seriously, I love the fact that you got revenge on this guy because the way he was acting was incredibly inappropriate. My friend deliberately disappeared from my life after graduation, all after they used me so that they wouldn't get in trouble with school administration. So in retaliation, I decided to get some petty revenge by literally ruining their Spotify playlist in a way that is completely unrepairable. Here's what happened. Okay, for the sake of this story, let's call my friend in question Bailey. Bailey is not their real name. So I was friends with Bailey throughout most of college. We were pretty close and would always hang out. I'd drive them places, we would organize and throw parties together, which will be important later on. I would help their partner out with a place to stay or rides whenever they wanted, etc. So I think it's safe to say that I thought we were pretty good friends. Sometime during our final year, Bailey, along with a few others, was a part of a long and pretty nasty conflict with other people I was acquainted with. This conflict ended up being escalated to the school administration, and they ended up calling in everyone named as a potential witness to testify so that they could have all sides and all info to make a decision regardless of the situation. Throughout all of this, Bailey would check in on me and encourage me to speak out, remind me of things that had happened, and made sure our story stayed consistent. Throughout this, I felt like I was being a good friend by speaking the truth and defending my friends from attacks, while making sure the other individuals involved would be held accountable for whatever happened. Well, fast forward to the week leading up to graduation, and I was reaching out to a lot of people so that I could get a meal in with them before we all left for good. I tried reaching out to Bailey and the group that we were a part of so that we could get a meal together, but I got no answer. After insisting, I was told that one of them, not the friend in question, wasn't allowed to hang out with people of my gender because their partner didn't allow it. So I didn't press the matter further, and I decided that I'd just try and see these people individually at some point. And not to spoil it, but that never happened. And the same thing happened with graduation photos. I didn't get any with Bailey or that group. A few days after graduation, I went to send Bailey something on social media, only to realize I was blocked by them on everything. After talking to some other friends who had been abroad, they confirmed that Bailey told people after graduation that they were going to use me to gain leverage during their troubles with the school administration, and then they were going to block me, which was shocking to me because this person never showed any signs of disliking me, nor did anything happen for them to feel that way about me. All of this leads to today when I found an old device I haven't used in 3 years. It turns out Bailey had logged into Spotify on this device of mine for an event but never logged out. And after all this time, I finally got a chance to enact some sort of revenge. So I ended up deleting all of their playlists and unfollowing any and all artist playlists that they had saved. By the time I was done, they had no music left and had logged out of their account as to prevent anybody from knowing it was me. So sure, it is kind of petty, but you know what? Bailey screwed me over in a serious way. And while I am still upset about it, I'm really glad that I no longer have to be around you. Oh man, Bailey sounds like a terrible person. They literally used you in a way that honestly is so inappropriate. And honestly, the way this ended is kind of like the way it always ends in other situations. You don't really get that satisfying ending, and you just try to move on from the crappy situation. So I think it's fantastic that you got some kind of revenge on this person, because the way they acted towards you, in my opinion, is incredibly inappropriate. My entitled extended family demands that they be allowed to build an entirely new house in our backyard. And now that we're being told about this literally at the last second, my aunt is on her way to try and sort out the details. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so honestly, how do I even start this? A few years back, I think maybe about 2023, we started started having some issues concerning the house we currently live in. The usual family drama caused by golden children, namely my aunt mainly at the moment, of who gets the house and etc. when grandma passes away. There's been fights concerning putting legal paperwork in order, to my grandmother and aunt wanting to sell the house right under our noses, to wanting to take the whole basement that's currently my brother's workshop, where they would toss all of his stuff out to make an apartment for my aunt and uncle when they come to visit here. They have plots to throw me, my mom, and my brother out of the house, to even my aunt accusing my mom of mistreating my grandmother. We've had everything happen practically, but recently some things came up that really made this so much worse. My grandmother came back from staying with my aunt and uncle for the holidays out in the States, and this is where she apparently put them through heck and back. And for reference, my grandma is a huge narcissist, but somehow, despite all of that, my aunt and grandma made plans to build a house in the backyard for my aunt. And this is all without telling us until the very last minute. So it starts off like this. Me, my mom, and my brother are in the living room when my grandma comes down and says the following. My grandma says, "Grandson, I would like to talk to you." My brother then jumps in with suspicion and says, "What do you want?" Whenever you start a sentence like that, it's because you want something. But my grandma said, No, I just wanted to ask you a question, just out of curiosity. Your aunt wants to build a house in the backyard. Would that even be possible? Well, my brother then raised his eyebrow, already smelling the next round of family conflict. He then said, "Well, you could, but it would be illegal. And the house would just most likely collapse because, for one, there's a sewer drainage system back there. Secondly, the ground back there isn't solid at all, so it's a big risk making a house back there when the ground is sinking. Third, you can't just build a house right behind this house, because you'd have no proper exit in case of emergencies. Also, you'd have to segregate the land, and both mom, uncle, and you would need to sign that you're giving that part to my aunt. And also, you need to get permissions and permits to build back there if you want to do it legally, which will be near impossible. Then again though, it's not like aunt is gonna listen. She'll do what she wants even if someone is telling her that's a bad idea. Now at this point, my mom and I are just silently listening to the entire thing, and we're actively thinking in our heads, oh man, here we go again. Because trust me, this is just the beginning of our troubles. My grandma then says, "Oh, well, you all sort that out with your aunt. I clean my hands of this. I have nothing to do with this. Middle daughter, you talk to your sister." And then after that, my aunt texts my mom something along the lines of, "Hey sister, so I've been thinking about building a house for myself in the backyard over there. You know, since I'm not getting any younger here. My health isn't great at the moment, and if anything happens to my boyfriend, I won't get the house. And the house will go to his kids, and they'll most likely just sell the house. And then I won't have anywhere to go. I've been thinking about this for a long time now, and I brought it up to mom, and she's on board. And I already talked to our brother yesterday, and he's okay with it. But I really can't wait any longer because of my health. I've been waiting to get the basement for 5 years already, but it's like pulling teeth with you. I really don't understand what your deal is. You always act like we're attacking you, but we're not. I don't understand why we can't all get along like family and communicate properly. If it makes you feel better, brother has agreed to give up his share of the house and give it to you." But here's the thing, all of this was a complete lie. It turns out she had been already talking to a guy to build the house and made plans for what she wants it to look like, and because she has the money for it, she had this thought out for a long time now. And we only know this because my brother found out from our second cousin. Now supposedly my aunt is coming out here to sort all of this out soon, so I'm honestly so worried about how this is gonna go down, because at this point, I really don't know what to do. Your aunt is unbelievably toxic. Think about it for a second. She's like, "Oh man, I've already talked to your brother. I'm gonna build a house back there. I just want to communicate properly. Like seriously, what's the problem?" And it's like, yeah, I wonder why we can't communicate properly. And it's like, oh, I don't know. Maybe it's because you want to build a house in the backyard? For starters, the brother in this story literally said everything I was thinking. The house is not going to be solid. It's going to fall apart. There's no drainage or like water system. It's like, what are we doing right now? This is crazy. Is she going to tap into the other house to try and like siphon energy off of that? Like this lady is so selfish. This is so dumb. And it doesn't help that the grandma's like, okay, I'm washing my hands of this. Because it's like, wait a second, you've clearly been colluding in this. You've obviously been like having discussions about this in general. And now you're going to try and be like, oh, I have nothing to do with it now. This is no longer my problem. See ya. It's like, no, I don't think so. That's not how this works. If you're in for a penny, then you're in for a pound. So yeah, your aunt is incredibly crazy. She really thought she could get away with this literally by lying to your face, especially when she had everything set up already. And I guarantee you, if this went south in some kind of way, where the local government got involved and said, hey, you can't build a second house next to this other house, she would then suddenly turn into this big victim of the situation and somehow try to blame it on you, your mom, and your brother. You know, the people who live there and occupy that property. So seriously, for the sake of your family, I hope all of this gets worked out, because what you're going through right now, in my opinion, sounds incredibly obnoxious. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com patreon.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mother bought me a present for Christmas that I have explicitly stated I have no interest in, and now I feel very stuck and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm 29 years old, and my mother got me a pair of Birkenstock sandals for the summer for Christmas, and I absolutely hate them, and I've told her this before. I sound so ungrateful and I hate my attitude, but it's also what I know this represents. She keeps going on about these shoes, and every time before she gave them to me, I said I have no interest in them, which is the truth. I have sandals already, which do me fine, meaning that I did not need new shoes. Well, she has her own, and I feel she's trying to inflict this on me. Well, every Sunday when I would see her in the summer on a day off, she would comment on what I was wearing. She would say, "Why are you wearing sandals?" Or on another day be like, "Well, at least you're wearing sandals today." And at this point, I'm already dreading the summer now because I know this will be the existence of every Sunday. She'll say to me, "Good, you're wearing your Birkenstocks. They're great shoes, aren't they?" And I have no choice but to go along with it, or else I'm going to be seen as the worst person in the world. I have stated on so many occasions that I do not like the brand. I don't find the shoes comfortable at all. I'm also trying to improve my spending and saving habits, so I refuse to buy things I don't need a duplicate of and cut down on what I don't need, basically making this quality over quantity. And that's another reason I can't stand having the new shoes. I know I didn't pay for them, but I also do not need them. My current ones work perfectly, even at around 6 years old. I wore them all summer long and I love them. I went to Rome in August doing around 30 to 40,000 steps a day, and they really were ideal. She does it constantly with 2 pairs of shoes that she has already bought me. Whenever I wear them, she comments or asks, "Oh, you're lucky to have those shoes. Are they not super comfortable?" And she does this every single time. And look, they are only shoes. It's absolutely harmless, but it's still very strange that she has to do it every single time. I think my issue lies more with what I know this represents rather than the shoes. I remember looking at them when I got them in the box, and there's even a separate toe slit as well, which I completely detest. I feel so ungrateful because her intentions were good, and she spent a lot of money too. So seriously, what do you think? Why is she trying to push this onto me when I've said I'm not interested? What should I do? Okay, honestly, I do think I understand where you're coming from, but also it really does seem like your mom cares about you. Like, I think you're reading this right by basically assuming, yeah, she means well and this really was supposed to be a good thing. But that doesn't ignore the fact that you really don't want them. You seriously just don't need these things. And I also can't ignore the fact that she is constantly talking to you about this, because if that were me, I would be super annoyed. So I know if I was in that situation, I would probably try and go about this in a casual way and try to go around her in a way where it's like, yes, I'm wearing them to satisfy your need to see them, but also I'm gonna mix it up and wear something else. And if she does try to be like, "Wait, where's the Birkenstock?" you could just be like, "Oh, I decided to switch it up today and wear something else." And just try to keep it casual overall, regardless of however she acts. So yeah, hopefully this works out, because honestly, I can completely understand why you would be getting frustrated. An entitled Karen comes to my grocery store demanding that we cook a turkey for her so that she can have it for Thanksgiving. But despite the fact that we have signs literally all over the store explaining to her that we're out of product, she still was not having any of that, choosing instead to act incredibly entitled and very obnoxious. Here's what happened. During college, I had 2 jobs. One was at a pizza restaurant, and the other was at a localized but very prolific grocery store chain. Think a few hundred stores all in the same couple of counties in the same US state. I primarily worked in the deli and hot food section of the grocery store. We had a very nice commercial rotisserie oven that we could spit something like 30 chickens on at once. Now, for the chickens we used, and it is crucial to note, were not taken from other stores' meat section, but they were shipped to us separately from the supplier. They were sized up, contained packets of the seasoning mix that we were supposed to sprinkle on them, were already pre-cleaned, and had been mechanically drilled through so we could easily spit them onto the large rotating arms of the commercial grade rotisserie. This last step is crucial, because if you try to force an improperly prepped bird onto one of those very large spit arms, the odds are high the bird will fall apart into the oven and start to burn up and smoke. Usually, we cooked enough chickens each day to meet everybody's demands, but every once in a while when we had an unusually busy day and ran out when it was too late to make more, we would have a customer bring a whole chicken from the meat section and ask if we could cook it. Well, mercifully, we would explain all of the above, plus the fact that we weren't going to run the entire expensive oven for just one bird. People would then typically say, "Oh, okay, I understand," and then leave without pestering us further. In fact, most people began the inquiry by saying, "I know the answer is probably no, but here's what I want to do." So overall, they weren't too disappointed. Sometimes we'd get a remark from our manager afterwards about how we should have prepped more birds, but that was all the extent of it. Well, with that bit of context out of the way, this is where our story starts. It was well publicized that this chain of stores around the United States during Thanksgiving offered a pre-cooked overlooked meal special. But here's the thing, you had to pre-order it well in advance. The reason being is that part of that special involved us stocking a fixed amount of turkeys that were specially prepped for the oven, just like our chickens usually were, and that way we could cook it in the rotisserie. In fact, we would have a special crew to stay after closing the day before Thanksgiving just to cook these turkeys and their accompanying sides overnight. That way people could just pick them up Thanksgiving morning. Once we had taken enough pre-orders to account for all of our turkeys, we couldn't take any more orders because the supplier wouldn't send any more turkeys. This was well publicized in all of our TV ads. This was also on signs on the door and the deli and the cash register, not to mention the website. I mean, if you name it, it described it. Well, one year we were swamped with pre-orders, and in fact, we actually ran out of pre-drilled turkeys about 10 days prior to Thanksgiving, whereas usually it's about 3 or 4 days prior. My manager, foreseeing potential disaster, bought some really bright neon colored paper and wrote in black bold letters that we could no longer take pre-orders and that we were out of turkeys. He posted these signs all over the store, every entrance, every exit, the frozen section, the produce section, the butcher, the dry goods, and of course our own section in the deli and hot foods. Well, we get through the next couple of days just fine, and his plan seemed to have worked. But then, the day before Thanksgiving, an entitled old Karen enters our story. And yes, she had that certain haircut. Quite literally with one of my manager's childish neon with black letters, "You can't possibly miss it" signs right next to her. She starts giving off this sob story and starts begging and pleading with me, trying to somehow get a Thanksgiving meal pre-order in for her. I try to be as nice to her as I possibly can, initially thinking that she's distraught, but then she suddenly runs off. I think that's the end of it, but then she comes back with a truly gigantic turkey from the frozen meat section. She looks at me and says, "Here, I brought you a turkey, put it in with the others." Now, at this point, I have to take a deep breath and try to explain why I can't do that. The bird isn't prepped, the bird is too big and won't cook at the same speed as the others, and I also don't know how long she's had it out of the freezer, so it's also a sanitation issue. Not to mention that it's not drilled through, and I would tear it up trying to spit it. Well, she's having none of that. She just keeps on whining, "You can't be out of turkeys, there's so many in the back. I'll get a smaller one, I really need this." And naturally, I'm thinking to myself, why did you even think you would be able to come in the day before Thanksgiving anyways, when the store is slammed? Plus, the ad said, "Order now, order soon." And we've got signs saying that we ran out of turkeys 9 days ago. But of course, I can't say that. Finally, she swears under her breath a little and then she leaves. And I was just glad that it didn't go worse. But I know for a fact that she complained to corporate because, of course, my management came up to me and said that I got a complaint. I hate people who act like this, like seriously, it's just so annoying. There's no other way of putting it. They have signs plastered all over the store. "We don't have any more pre-orders, I'm sorry, but you can't get it here." And yet this lady's like, "Oh, come on, my situation is specific and just completely out of the ordinary. Cook this turkey for me because I need it right now." And it's like, seriously, your lack of planning is not my emergency, and I'm not gonna be held hostage by your stupid decisions. So yeah, that entitled Karen was very stupid, and I'm so sorry that you had to put up with that. An entitled teacher demands that I get out of a classroom earlier than I signed up for, as she claims that she needs 15 minutes to prepare her stupid lesson, thus putting me in a really bad spot. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a college as a teacher's assistant and as a tutor. I only do science classes, but I am an assistant for one particular science class. I have my tutoring sessions in a room in the library twice a week for 30 minutes. Because it is a difficult class, we go quickly to cover everything and take up the whole 30 minutes. I also signed up for this room at this time before the semester even started. And let's say this is from 11:30 until 12 o'clock. On my very first day, I was told that I would need to be out exactly at 12 because there's a class after me. And I think to myself, okay, that's no problem. It takes me 1 minute to pack up and get out of the way. Easy peasy. Well, 15 minutes into my first session, this woman walks in looking very confused and asks me what's going on. I explain that I'm having my tutoring session, and if she's waiting for the class, it starts at 1. She then goes back and forth with me, perplexed about what I'm doing there, and finally mentions that she's the art teacher and she needs 15 minutes to prepare for her class. Now, it's a huge room, so I said I didn't mind if she gets ready in the back half of the room. Now, I was well within my rights to tell her no, that I have the room until 12, but I'm a nice person. Well, every single session, her students start coming in 15 minutes early, and I nicely tell them they can sit in the back of the room and that their class will start soon. It's a little disruptive, but it's not too bad. We're all getting into the swing of things after all. The art teacher, however, will come in early and very rudely tell me I need to hurry up and be out early. And she is so rude and condescending. She comes in and interrupts my session that I signed up for, also that she can start her class early. I understand that she needs time to prepare, but if she needed 15 extra minutes, then she should have signed up for 11:45 and not 12 o'clock. And she can't expect to just kick out whoever's in there. I am so fed up with her unprofessional and rude behavior. I've talked with my supervisor about it, who says I'm in the right and I have every right to be there until 12 o'clock. But it's all really frustrating. I'm thinking of sending an email and sending it to my supervisor and her supervisor, but I don't want to take that route. I just want to do my tutoring in peace and go about my day. I hate that she thinks she's entitled to the room during my time, and at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Oh man, I think you absolutely should raise this to the next level, because this idiot is literally interrupting your session. She's walking in there 15 minutes early and saying, you need to hurry up and get out. Like, in my opinion, at that point, it's time to elevate this immediately. Anyone, and I mean anyone, talking to you like that is completely out of line. It would be at that moment I would be like, oh, you want to talk to me like that? Well then congratulations, I'm gonna get petty and weird. So that would mean if you're not a part of my tutoring session, then congratulations, you're not gonna be in my classroom, because the way she's treating you is absolutely unprofessional and you do not deserve that in the slightest. My idiotic chef at the job I work at complained to corporate that I was slacking off and not doing my job. So I decided to get some petty revenge by exposing the fact that this guy doesn't do anything at work either. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. So I got hired as a line cook when I got out of culinary school, and it was for a big hotel chain. I got hired for the day-to-day work, and we had 8 other line cooks and a head chef who was always bragging about his workload and how he spared us from the paper monster. The head chef was, for a better word, absent from the kitchen floor and basically was a pencil pusher. He did the ordering, the stocking, the timesheets, the rosters, as well as the schedules, and communication with HR, the general manager, and he made all the menus. For the most part, the work paid okay, and there was not much hassle. Thing was, the menus that we had to cook were outdated and very uninspiring. And when I say uninspiring, think about a cookbook from 70 years ago. That's basically what I'm talking about. At some point, we as a kitchen team were done with that, and we requested that we make the menus. And the head chef for some reason was happy to oblige. So now here comes the kicker. We had an after-hours menu with simple meals: BLT, pizza, salads, soups, fries, hamburgers. And for some reason, corporate decided that the after-hours menu had to go, and it's going to be replaced by the normal day-to-day menu. Well, this led to the following situation. Almost nobody ordered food during the night shift. It turns out when people come to a hotel late, they are either too tired or too drunk to eat a meal that takes around 15 minutes to serve, or they're in no mood for sauteed salmon in white wine sauce. This went on for like a year, and corporate saw the nosedive in the night shift revenue across the board, and they made the only logical decision to combat this problem. They fired all the night shift line cooks, or relocate them to other hotels if they could not be fired. Of course, the after-hours menu was not changed, nor was it removed, and instead it meant the shift had to be picked up by another. So this is where the tale really begins. I worked there for about 2 years, and I got into some trouble with the head chef as we didn't see eye to eye. This then led to the following situation. I had to pick up almost every single night shift. I would come in at 4 in the afternoon and then leave at around 5 o'clock in the morning. I worked 40 hours on paper, but in reality, I worked around 50. I didn't mind as overtime was paid out, and me as a 21-year-old could do a lot with the paid out overtime. But the thing was, it was so boring. In the beginning, I cleaned the kitchen, checked the walk-ins for spoiled goods, set up a part of the breakfast, and did some minor paperwork. After about 3 weeks, I ran out of work to do. Every 2 or 3 days, I could clean something or check the fridges, but what at first took about an hour, now took like 10 to 15 minutes. So I did the logical thing and I started reading books, watching Netflix, talking to the night manager, starting to experiment with new recipes, and just hanging out with the interns. Basically, I just messed around on company time. So after a while, I got called into the office by the general manager. I got a verbal reprimand for slacking off. When I asked him why, he told me someone told him what I did during the night shift. So of course I explained to him what I did, and that in between these hours, I had very little to do. This led to a discussion between corporate, my general manager, and my union about what I could and could not do within the position that I was hired for. But at the end of that entire ordeal, I was tasked with the kitchen paperwork, and Chef just unloaded his whole work week onto me, telling me to get to work and that the time for slacking was over. He said this all smug, and apparently he was assuming I would not finish this, or I would come begging for help. I had to do timesheets, order produce, and answer emails. Chef was always bragging about the work and that it took a whole week, but after one look, I knew he was not familiar with computers and the various programs he had to work with. So within a month, I had figured out that our time management system could be linked to our payroll system, and I only had to check if the breaks were logged correctly. Then I would hit the sync button and place the request for validation by my general manager or human resources. The same went for ordering software. I could upload a produce list lists and order from an iPad while walking around to different walk-ins and freezers. Also, I combined this with the 2-day spoil check. Within 2 months or so, I found out that the work schedule sheet could be copied to another week, and with another software link, I could sync up our human resources app so it would automatically generate a warning when someone was on leave or on vacation. It took me 2 night shifts to do all of the above, and the other 3 I could easily just slack on. Well, due to this, the chef had nothing to do in the office, and in turn, he was also slacking. He had literally nothing to do during the day, but just sit around in his office. Well, after about 2 months, somebody, and sure, I don't know who it was, slipped this info to the general manager, and after that, the chef had to work in the kitchen, and his 9 to 5 completely changed. He had to do breakfast shifts as he failed to do line cook work, since he was stuck 30 years in the past when sticking everything in jelly was a trend. Soon after this, corporate got wind of this great innovation, and asked our chef to document this all and send this over to them. When I left the company due to other reasons, corporate was contemplating cutting the head chef's position and making somebody else the manager responsible for the kitchen. So all in all, I'm so glad I got back at my chef because that guy ruined a really good job in my life. I find this so funny because the chef was lazy just as much as the original poster. And it's nobody's fault, like seriously. I've been in jobs like that where it's like, oh man, there's nothing to do and I've literally completed my job for the list. I guess it's time to sit around and do nothing and hope that I don't get caught. So for the chef to turn around and be like, wow, you're being lazy, the time for slacking's over. That is so ironic to me because that is exactly what he was doing. So it's really cool to see that you gave him a taste of his own medicine. My selfish, entitled friend demands that I allow him to propose to his girlfriend at my extravagant birthday dinner. And despite the fact that I told him no, he can't do that, as well as taking all the time to plan this special celebration, this jerk still decided to go against my wishes and propose right there on the spot to his girlfriend. And now as a result, my friends are telling me that I should be happy for them and that I'm making a big deal out of nothing. But at this point, I'm honestly super pissed off and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. I'm a 27-year-old female and I recently hosted a small birthday party at a nice restaurant. It wasn't anything extravagant, just a dinner with about 15 close friends and family. I was excited because I don't usually throw big birthday celebrations, and I wanted to enjoy the night with the people that I care about. A few days before the party, my friend, who we will call Mark, pulled me aside and asked if he could propose to his girlfriend, who we will call Sarah, at my birthday dinner. He said it would be the perfect setting because all of our friends would be there and that this would make the night extra special. But you know what? I told him no. I said I was happy for him and Sarah, but this was my birthday and I didn't want the focus shifted away from that. And while he did look a little disappointed, he said that he understood. And trust me, this will be important later on. Well, fast forward to the dinner and everything was going great until Mark suddenly stood up, clinked his glass, and started giving a speech. Now, at first, I thought he was going to say something about my birthday, but no, I was completely wrong. He got down on one knee and proposed to Sarah right there at the party. Now, obviously, Sarah was overjoyed. Everyone started clapping, and suddenly, my birthday dinner turned into their engagement celebration. I was stunned and honestly pretty pissed off, but I didn't want to make a scene. I just smiled and went along with it. Afterward, I pulled Mark aside and I asked him why he did that when I already told him no. He then just shrugged his shoulders and said, I knew you'd understand. It was too perfect of a moment to pass up. I then told him I felt disrespected, and he suddenly got defensive, saying I was being selfish because a proposal's a bigger deal than a birthday. Well, now some of my mutual friends are saying that I should be happy for them and that I'm making a big deal out of nothing, but I can't help but feel like my night was completely hijacked. So seriously, am I the jerk for being upset that my friend proposed at my birthday party after I explicitly told him not to? Because right now I'm incredibly pissed off. Okay, I really need to get this out there because I kind of sense a theme when it comes to people proposing at other engagements. And I mean like stuff like a wedding or a birthday party or like a baby shower or something like that. The only reason he's like, oh yeah, this would be the perfect setting is because he's not paying for it and he didn't organize anything that you're doing. Like that's literally the only reason he's like, oh, this would be perfect. I knew you would understand. And it's like, yeah, I understand that you're a terrible friend and you're not welcome to anything I ever do again. Him saying that it's the perfect setting is basically him admitting that he's too stupid and lazy to organize this himself. And instead of doing the legwork himself, he would rather just mooch off of your hard work and reap the rewards of your planning instead of doing it himself. That really is unbelievably toxic, and I don't blame you for being pissed off. Like, you would think at this point in life, people would understand that this is not a good thing to do. It is entirely taboo to go against someone else's wishes, and for even like asking that in the first place. And sure, it's just a birthday party, but guess what? It's your birthday party. This is something that you planned with your friends and family, and this guy completely ruined that. that. And the fact that anybody's trying to be like, oh, you should just be happy for them. You're making a big deal out of nothing. It's like, oh, okay. Is he going to pay for like, I don't know, any reservation fees for the restaurant? Or like any party planning expenses that you had to like take on your back? Like, this is so dumb, and I just can't believe anybody would be on his side. So no, you're not the jerk for calling this guy out. What he did was completely out of line, and I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, I absolutely would have chewed this guy out and told him exactly how I felt, because the fact that he ruined this party is completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for how I handled my son's girlfriend spending the night? Because right now my daughter's pissed off at me and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, I have two children. I have a 21-year-old daughter that we will call Donna and a 19-year-old son that we will call Austin. Both of them live at home, but they also stay on campus at their respective colleges. Austin has a girlfriend who we will call Bridget, with whom he's been dating for nearly a year. Early in their relationship, Bridget stayed over once while Donna was at school, and with Donna's blessing, Bridget slept in Donna's room and Austin stayed in his own. They chose to sleep separately and there was no drama. Well, this winter break, both kids were home. Toward the end of the break, Bridget returned from out of state, but couldn't move back into her dorm yet. Austin then asked if she could stay with us for a few days, and I agreed, but mentioned that we would need to figure out sleeping arrangements since we don't have a guest room. All we have are mine and my husband's room, Austin's room, and Donna's room. Austin said that he and Bridget now share a bed, but his twin bed would be a very tight fit. Donna, on the other hand, has a full-size bed, so I suggested Donna and Austin switch rooms temporarily. Donna could use Austin's bed and Austin and Bridget would stay in hers. I assured Donna that I changed the bedding afterwards, but she was visibly upset and asked why Austin couldn't just sleep on the couch. I told her it was only for a few days, and since Austin wanted to share a bed with Bridget, this arrangement made sense. When Bridget arrived, everything seemed fine at first. That night, Bridget went to bed early, and Donna pulled Austin aside in the kitchen. I couldn't hear the start of their conversation, but Austin suddenly started yelling. He shouted, "Shut up, why do you always say that?" all before storming into the living room. He loudly announced that he would never invite Bridget back if everything is such a problem. When I asked what happened, Austin explained that Donna asked him not to spend quality time with Bridget in her bed, and I think you know what I'm referring to. He claimed that he had no intention of doing that and accused Donna of being weird and trying to cause trouble. Donna said that she had purposefully tried to talk to Austin quietly just to avoid any kind of scene, and she hadn't said anything to Bridget. She also said it wasn't unreasonable to ask, given that she knew that Austin and Bridget were very active, again, if you know what I mean. I then told Donna that she didn't need to make such a big deal since I had already promised to wash the sheets. Donna then became upset and ended up staying with a friend for the rest of the break. Well, fast forward and school has since resumed, but Donna is barely responding to my calls or my text messages. Austin told me Bridget overheard the argument and now feels uncomfortable being in our house or around Donna. Now, my husband said that Austin caused the scene by yelling and pointing out that Donna wasn't out of line for making her request. He also said I should never have let Bridget stay in the first place. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, there are so many things wrong with this, but let me just start off by saying that yes, you are absolutely the jerk. Because you know what? Donna's 100% right. Why couldn't Austin just sleep on the couch? Just because they sleep in the same bed doesn't mean they're gonna take Donna's bed. Like, if I was in Donna's shoes, I would be very pissed off. There is no way I would be okay with that, like at all, not for a second. And the fact that you tried to be like, oh, it's only for a few nights, it's no big deal, just switch beds and stop being weird, I'll change the sheets. It's like, are you kidding me right now? I am not agreeing to this. This is so weird. You could have easily gotten an air mattress or something like that and been like, okay, sleep here, instead of, I don't know, like uprooting Donna's living arrangement. So yes, I do think you're the jerk, and I think what you did is completely out of line, because that, in my opinion, was incredibly gross and very toxic. My husband gave me an ultimatum, stating that if I don't quit my side hustle teaching yoga, he's going to leave our marriage. So right now, I feel completely blindsided, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I just got married a year and a half ago to the most incredible person. I just gotten out of a 6-year relationship, we were friends for a few months, and it quickly became every bit of a classic when you know for the both of us. Within 3 months, we had bought our first home, got engaged after 9 months, and then got married almost a year to the day with a dream destination wedding in Greece. And we've been together now for over 3 years. It's important to know we are in a multicultural marriage. My husband is Hindu Punjabi, and he immigrated from India over a decade ago, and I'm a white American. Greece was an equidistant travel for both of our families, who, by the way, get along famously and have really embraced our blending of cultures. We have a lot of family support on both sides. When we got married, we were on the same page about what we expected from each other and what we wanted. Our red lines signs were physical violence and cheating, with us agreeing that everything else could be figured out, and one of those things that we agreed on was fitness. In the early stages of our relationship, we worked out together constantly, we went on runs, etc., and we talked often about our mutual desire to continue to cultivate a long, healthy life together. Now, a few differences that need to be noted. He grew up in a household with very traditional gender roles in India, namely where his father was verbally awful to his mother, and he would go days giving her the silent treatment. My husband has also been open about how witnessing this affected him growing up. His parents have worked it out over time, but his mom has shared openly about this dynamic with me. His father rarely has to lift a finger at home, but worked very hard to provide for the family. So yes, a very traditional Indian culture. My husband has two sisters who both take a more modern approach to their relationships, and that seems to be accepted within the family. Now, my parents split responsibilities 50-50 as often as possible. Both work full-time, they've always been best friends, and I rarely saw them argue. Also, my husband is easily triggered and very reactionary. He works on it in his own way, but refuses to try individual therapy. Shortly after we got together, we moved to a new state for his job, about an hour north of the city where we met and had a lot of friends. He worked a mid-shift at the time and wasn't getting home until 1 to 3 o'clock in the morning the first year of living in our new state. The hour drive made it harder to see friends regularly, and I was home alone all the time. Well, integrative nutrition and movement gave me my life back a few years ago after being diagnosed with a chronic illness. So after about a year of living in our new state, I found a local fitness studio to start taking classes to tone up for our wedding and to meet some friends. Also, my husband has had on and off issues with the herb, if you know what I mean. Very all or nothing kind of person, with no balance to when the herb is in the house, so that started to really creep back up just before we got married. It's a daily fight for him, and I'm here to help him through it. Every few months he does relapse, he goes on a bender and then realizes it's sending him into a deeper depression. Being loved by a supportive partner gave me another level of confidence. I felt like I could pursue just about anything, and we would somehow just make it work. I had been a fitness instructor in college, and I had always wanted to pick it back up. So with his late night schedule, I signed up for a yoga teacher training program and started the weekend we returned from our wedding. Now, this was an every other weekend intensive and a big time commitment, but I made a point to try my best to nurture our free time together. I ended up loving teaching yoga. I made lifelong friends and was the first in my cohort to be offered a job right after training at the studio. Teaching at this studio is highly competitive. Usually, you have to do a mentorship, but they let me get right on the schedule, and I was super thrilled. My husband then started experiencing pretty significant job stress around this time, and honestly, he was also dealing with a really awful boss situation, and I'm sure we've all been there. He then started showing symptoms of high-functioning depression. He was in bed for both weekend days, doom scrolling and watching football. He was withdrawn from activities that used to make him happy. He had no desire to spend time with friends and had limited energy to spend time with me. Now, his parents and my parents and some of our friends noticed the change. Instead of a partnership, he started expressing his desire for me to act more like a stay-at-home wife. Dinner on the table every night, house tidy as a main responsibility, but I also work a 9-to-5 remote from home, and I am the breadwinner. So it was really hard to have this expectation morph from a shared responsibility to solely being mine. All of this was building until we found out I had an aggressive form of pre-cancer and had to see a specialist for treatment in another state, which, by the way, this was 8-hour round trips every weekend for months. The whole thing seemed to give him purpose again, and confronted with my potential early mortality, we spent our car rides talking about our dreams and life goals. We dreamed up the idea to start a matcha and cold-pressed juice camper to have a little side business together on the weekends, and started moving forward with that, but as soon as I got the all clear last June, he fell right back into a depressive episode. I tried to plan small activities without putting too much on his plate, since work stress was at an all-time high, but after a while, he started to resent me for keeping him away from being in bed. I continued with our business plans alone, kept teaching yoga, working my 9-to-5, and holding it down for him at home, but no amount of me would help him pull out of the work, then bed, then depression cycle. In his darker moments, he expressed that he felt like my job teaching yoga was taking away from my ability to be there for him. When I asked for specifics, he would just tell me, "Oh, you should just know," and that no matter what I did, I was somehow falling short. At this point, I had fallen in love with teaching yoga. In fact, my classes started waitlisting. Helping my students gave me passion and purpose, and I had finally found real community, which was such a bright spot when there was no effort being put into our partnership at home. Our fights began to escalate, and I found myself on the receiving end of low blows, as well as name-calling and verbal mistreatment. I tried so hard to meet him where he was and stay neutral and non-reactive, but you can only be called the B word so many times without losing it on occasion. This past November, he was promoted and finally had normal work hours again. I switched my workout schedule at the studio to morning so that I could be there for him when he got home at night, with the exception of one night a week. When I got offered a second class and weekend spot on the yoga schedule, and this is because my first class was doing so well, I wanted to accept it immediately, but made a point to ask him first. He then said he was okay with it, but hated the idea. Over the past year of teaching, it's been hard seeing other instructors' friends' husbands show up for them, and there's just something about this gig that my husband just hates, and I wish he could be just as supportive and proud, but anytime I spend at the yoga studio, which is at max maybe 3 hours weekly, he's expressed that it takes away from him somehow. A girlfriend of mine, who my husband knows well, and I thought likes as a human being, from the yoga studio that I go to, came over Monday night to do a little bit of extra work on a series that we're doing together. I cooked dinner for all of us, I made sure my husband had what he needed, and after my friend left, I got in bed and I gave him a hug, only to then be met by him saying, "Get the F away from me," followed by 48 hours of silent treatment, despite my pleading to try and have a conversation. Last night, he came to me and said, "It's yoga or it's me. You have until Sunday to quit your teaching job or I'm leaving our marriage." And now I'm just completely gutted. I've tried to offer a compromise and even offered to take a short leave of absence from teaching, but he refuses to speak to me until I make my decision on Sunday, and apparently it's all or nothing. Movement has saved my mental health. I have found so much purpose through teaching. Having a student approach me to tell me that they sleep better on nights that they had taken one of my classes, or that they feel more relaxed or inspired in any way, just absolutely lights me up. I finally feel seen standing up there, and I've somehow gotten good at it. I love being of service to other people. Yoga has transformed my mental health so much that I stepped away from therapy in 2023, but out of desperation, I reached out to my former psychologist for an emergency session this morning, who told me to hold the line and not quit just because he's threatening to leave. Hearing her say that the hardest thing you'll ever do is say no, and then watch what he does next, has ripped me to my very core. I still love this man and desperately want to make it work, even though I know if I were to hear this story from a friend or stranger, they would tell me to run away. I finally told my parents what's been going on, and they are supportive. I also quietly reached out to his sister, who reassured me that we are family and they would knock some sense into him. But seriously, am I missing something here? This ultimatum seems like it's about something so much deeper than my yoga job, but it's ripping me apart that the person I love wants me to quit something I've become so passionate about. What should I do? Okay, this is so messed up because you literally have done nothing wrong. First and foremost, your husband's being a massive jerk, and the fact that he's giving you an ultimatum, as well as treating you the way his dad treated his mom, in my opinion, is a massive, giant red flag. Because yeah, you're right, if anyone else told you this story, you would tell them to run away. The fact that he's trying to be like, oh, you need to quit your job as a yoga instructor or we're getting a divorce. That is such a giant leap in logic, it's not even funny. You're literally doing everything around the house, you're holding a full-time job, you're trying to pull him out of this depressive episode, and now he's trying to sit there and be like, oh, I want to be depressed. Let me just stay in bed all day. By the way, quit your job. It's like, dude, this is so stupid. You're literally getting upset about something that doesn't affect you. You've even changed your studio times to the morning so that you literally will be there for him and spend more quality time with your husband. And it's like you already do everything around the house and you're waiting on him practically hand and foot. This guy's still like, no, get away from me. Giving you the silent treatment for what, 2 days? What is he, a child? Like, this is so stupid. Because when you started out explaining what's going on, you describe him as like a good person and a really good man, but clearly the honeymoon period is over. And I don't know about anybody else listening, but there's no way I would ever get married to someone that fast. I better know everything about them, or they better be someone who's undeniably perfect in every way possible. Because that, in my opinion, is just really quick, but that's neither here nor there. I think more to the point, the fact that this guy gave you an ultimatum proves to me that this guy has some serious mental health issues, and maybe he's coming from a place of jealousy that you seem to be living your best life while he's sitting in bed rotting away and just doom scrolling. Which, by the way, hey, fun fact, that's not your fault. You're literally doing everything right, and this guy's trying to drag you down with him. So no, you are not the jerk, you didn't do anything wrong, and the fact that your husband is treating you this way is honestly unacceptable, because you do not deserve this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for making my husband leave work early so that he could give me the car keys that he took with him to work? Because right now I feel bad, but I'm also incredibly annoyed, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I really feel awful about this, but my husband has a habit of forgetting or just ignoring things that I say. I work from home, and I'm always there to unlock the front door for my husband when he gets back from work. So the couple of times I've needed the car, I get very annoyed that he's taken the house keys attached to the car keys with him. And this has happened a few times. He will lock all the house doors in the morning and go off to work with the car keys so I can neither leave the house nor drive anywhere. So I made sure that we had 2 sets of keys, and the second pair must always be on the console table for emergencies. Well, the problem is, my husband started keeping the emergency keys in his work bag, and if he took the car anywhere, I was again locked in the house. This recently happened again when my family was coming over, and they stood at the locked door while I searched the house for his work bag. Well, today, I woke up very unwell, and in between my meetings, I wanted to run to the chemist, while also wanting to pick up a book that I had on hold at the library, when once again, my husband had taken the car keys. What made me so angry was that I have told him this a million times, and I could have had a massive emergency. He was so calm and apologetic on the phone, but this honestly just made me more angrier. I am just so sick of him never listening. So I lost it, and I demanded he come home immediately and drop the keys back because I need to go to the chemist. He started apologizing and saying he has a meeting at work about to start, but I told him this is not a discussion, and I expect him back home right now because I am sick of repeating myself. Now, he said he's on his way back, but I feel so awful stressing him out while he's at work and making him take a 40-minute journey back. But I'm also so desperate to be heard the first time, which is exactly how I listen and respect his wishes. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I'm incredibly pissed off. Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. This really could get on my nerves pretty quickly, especially when there's not an extra pair of keys in the house. And don't get me wrong, I think the principle of the matter is super important here, where you quite literally just want him to hear what you're saying, but I would say at your earliest convenience, make a spare copy of everything and keep that on you at all cost. Because what you're describing sounds really frustrating, like that would piss me off so bad, especially when you're sick and you need to go to the chemist. And for people in America, that's another name for pharmacist. Like if I was in that scenario, I would be so annoyed. I'd be like, listen, I feel like garbage. I need the car keys. I need to go somewhere. Like you can't do this to me. So no, with all things considered, you're not the jerk. And hopefully this is a wake-up call for this guy where he's like, okay, I've got to start listening to my wife, because his behavior is super annoying and I don't blame you for getting upset in the way that you did. An entitled Disney Karen goes red with rage when I deny her early access into an amusement park ride. And even though this Karen tried literally every trick in the book to try and get past me, I decided right then and there to get some petty revenge by ensuring that even though I was going on break, this entitled Karen would have to wait her turn. And I've honestly never been happier to watch anyone get so angry in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I wanted to share another experience from my time as a worker at a very popular theme park in Florida. Now, for a bit of context, I worked at an attraction. One day, I was the fast pass line greeter, and it was the middle of peak season. We were ridiculously crowded, with wait times for standby being 2 hours, single rider about 50 minutes, and fast pass over an hour. Now, we were instructed to allow people in on the time stamped on their fast pass just to help thin out the line. And sometimes when it was busy, we would allow people to enter 5 minutes earlier than their ride reservation said. Well, a woman wearing white shorts, a fanny pack, and a white sun visor came walking up happily with her group and showed me her fast pass. But unfortunately, I stopped her because it was 10 minutes early. I then politely explained that she would have to wait to enter on the time stamped on the fast pass ticket. And it's right about this moment that this entitled Karen of the story starts to really lose her patience. She looks at me and says, "Oh, come on, really? It's just a few minutes early." I say to her, "I apologize, ma'am. Unfortunately, we are very busy, so you will have to wait for the time on your fast pass." The woman then says, "That's ridiculous. Everyone else let us in a few minutes early." This entitled Karen then tries to walk past me, but it is not happening. I block her by stepping in her way, and I smile and I ask her to step to the side. And when I do this, this entitled Karen lets out a huge sigh. I continue to let people in according to the times on their passes, as this Karen glares angry daggers at me. A man next to her tells her to just wait, it's not that serious, but she is absolutely fuming. Literally 3 minutes go by, and she storms back up and shoves the pass in my face. "Good enough for you now? Can I go in?" Now me, trying to remain magical, I say to her, "Ma'am, you still have 7 minutes until you can enter. Please step to the side." This Karen then starts to pop off at me. She says to me, "You're joking, 7 minutes. You're not seriously going to make me wait for 7 minutes." But I respond calmly by saying, "Yes, please step to the side." Another 2 minutes go by as a line of people come in. I check everyone's time, not looking at faces so much, but hands and tickets. And guess what? That's when I see the same ticket. I then look up and it's the same entitled Karen. She still had 5 minutes to wait. So now I'm irritated and she's irritated. I just stared at her for a few seconds quietly before doing a 2-finger point back to the side where her group and others were waiting patiently. She then stormed off right as my coworker, who we will call Kelly, walked up with my brake slip. This Karen then instantly got a grin on her face when she saw I was about to leave. And you know what? Her grin really pissed me off, and it was then that my petty box immediately switched on. I gave Kelly a a brief version of events and instructed them to make sure that she waited until the exact time printed on the freaking Fast Pass ticket. Kelly laughed a bit and said, okay, and I walked away, but only a few feet, when she sauntered over arrogantly grinning to Kelly and showed them the ticket. Kelly then said, sorry, but you'll have to wait until the time printed on the Fast Pass, ma'am. And at this point, this entitled Karen's face was turning red with anger. She then screeched out, did she tell you to do that? And Kelly just responded by saying, well, I have to work with her. And even though I was standing just a few feet away, and sure, it was probably petty, I feel that this Karen absolutely deserved it. Yeah, I can't stand when you deal with people at amusement parks that act like they're some kind of MVP. Seriously, these people are not special. You have a Fast Pass just like everybody else. Get in line and wait. Like seriously, let's think about it for a second. We're talking 10-minute wait. That is not that long. She could have stood there and talked with her family instead of acting like an entitled psychopath. Like, come on, that is so weird in my opinion. And I just love the fact that she tried multiple times. She came up to you so many different times and then tried to get back in line as if she was some kind of like anonymous customer. And it's like, dude, you're so weird. Just wait your turn. It's not that hard. Because I know if I was in the original poster shoes, if someone really wanted to fight me hard on this, then I would absolutely be like, yeah, I don't really care. You're gonna have to wait until the time printed. Because at that point, this is just obnoxious and this lady needs to chill out. You're not going to the hospital. You're going to an amusement park ride. Calm down and wait your turn. So personally, I love this petty revenge because you got this Karen exactly where it hurts. And clearly, that's her inability to be patient and wait her turn. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for declining to invite a woman to my house who has called herself a total kleptomaniac? Because right now, I fear that I've torn my friendship group apart, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I joined a women's social club 6 months ago because I've been struggling to make friends after relocating to a city that's new to me. It took me a while to warm up to the group and to connect with people I actually had anything in common with. I had to wait through a lot of Botox parties and boozy brunches just to find things that I was interested in. But I did, and I started coming to group events fairly often. I hang out most with the women who like to read, do crafty things, bake, skywatch, etc. And among these women is one that I will call Andrea for the sake of the story. And she's someone who has made several comments about how she is a total kleptomaniac. And I think she makes these comments to seem cool to the other people in the group. I reached out to some of the women I see regularly at these events and invited them over to my place to watch a TV show that we'd been talking about and to do some other crafty stuff. Well, they were excited and they agreed to come. Unfortunately, Andrea found out, as I assumed someone asked if she was going, and reached out to me to ask if she was invited. I considered this for a bit and then I told her no, as I only had so much room at home. She didn't believe me and asked me for the real reason, saying that I thought we got along, which yes, is true. I then told her that I'm not comfortable inviting a kleptomaniac into my house, that I've worked hard for the things that I have, and it would be stupid for me to invite her knowing that she openly brags about it. She then says okay very quietly, but then she says, you're painting me out to be some kind of horrible criminal when you don't even know anything about me. But I said that her being proud to call herself a klepto was all I needed to know. She then said that I was a high school mean girl and that I was ableist, and I'm really not sure what the foundation is for that statement. Well, this unfortunately has spilled over to the group, which is really frustrating. But what has me the most surprised is that there are so many people defending her and telling me that I'm out of touch and take things too literally. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because if someone's actually gonna be like, oh yeah, I just love to steal, I'm just such a kleptomaniac, I don't know what to do about myself. Like if someone's really saying that and they're outside of the age of like high school range, then I don't know about you, but I'm probably going to believe them and not want them around my personal belongings. Who in their right mind would openly say, yeah, I just love to steal, it's great, I have an addiction to stealing, isn't that fun? Like that's not something you brag about. That's something you keep to yourself and you don't share with anybody. Why would you want people to be afraid of like having their personal belongings around you? Like for me, I completely understand why the original poster's like, nah, I'm not inviting that lady. I don't want my stuff stolen because that lady is a kleptomaniac. She even said it. And even if she was joking, maybe she should pair that comment up with, oh, I'm just kidding, I'm being weird, or something like that to try and like diffuse the situation. Because seriously, this is not a good way to make friends at all. So no, I don't think the original poster is a jerk at all. I think they made a good decision by being like, nah, I'm not gonna invite that lady, because the way she's acting and the way she would self-admit that she's a kleptomaniac, that in my opinion is incredibly weird. My friend's soon-to-be ex-husband is an absolute nightmare towards her, as he's literally bugging the house and her car in some kind of weird attempt to monitor her every move, all before they get divorced. And I honestly hope that my friend gets out of that marriage sooner than later. Here's what happened. Okay, I have this friend who we will call Lisa, who's in her 50s, she's been married forever, and has spent way too much of that time putting up with her nightmare of a husband. Lisa had thought about divorcing him more times than she can count, but she always hesitated because she knew he would turn the process into a living nightmare. Well, 2 months ago, Lisa finally snapped. She decided it was time to break free and filed for divorce. This is when her husband, who we will call Todd the Terrible, immediately started proving her right by going full-on paranoid spy mode. First of all, he installed surveillance cameras all over their house, which unfortunately is technically legal in our country as long as he's living there as well. But Lisa's pretty sure he also planted some illegal listening devices because get this, that's the exact advice he gave his brother during his own divorce. As if that wasn't creepy enough, Todd took her car for 2 days because apparently it's the family car, even though he never uses the family car and he's got his own car. And this is all right after she handed him the divorce papers. And that would be plenty of time to slap on a GPS tracker or a few bugs, right? Now, what was his excuse for all this James Bond level nonsense? He claims that Lisa is cheating. And not to spoil the situation, but no, of course she's not. But here is the real kicker. In my country, divorce means splitting everything 50-50 regardless. That is, unless something truly extreme comes up. So even if Lisa were sneaking off to rendezvous with the entire team of the Kansas City Chiefs, it wouldn't change a thing. Todd's tantrum is entirely pointless. Now, Lisa doesn't have the time or money to check her car for gadgets, and the whole situation is understandably frustrating. So I suggested the perfect petty revenge, turning his creepy surveillance obsession against him. And now, when she's in the car, she regularly puts on a show loudly announcing gems like, "You are so small where it counts, it's microscopic, if you know what I mean. Also, you're the worst lover I've ever had, and I've had way better than you. And I feel so sorry for your future dates. They'll need a search party to find any satisfaction." She says she's tried it a few times now, and apparently she says this is more satisfying than any therapy she could ever sign up for. Wow, good for Lisa to get away from this weirdo. This guy literally set up surveillance cameras in the house simply because Lisa says, okay, I'm getting a divorce and I'm not dealing with this. And sure, a 50-50 split in some cases can be a really sketchy situation where people are not getting exactly what they want and people walk away unhappy. But in this scenario, I think Todd deserves it. From the sound of it, and at least from what the original poster described, Todd sounds like a horrible husband, and he's apparently been mistreating Lisa for far too long. So good for her for not only getting back by screaming these things in her clearly bugged car, but also for getting out of a marriage that clearly was not good for her. And hopefully things can work out better in the future. Am I the jerk for going into the vet when I was supposed to go in? Literally all because I was the next one in line. Because as a result, some people who were first but not in line complained that I was cutting in front of them. And at this point, I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, so this morning, my mom and I took her 2 cats to the vet. And the vet that we use is a walk-in only business. You cannot make appointments except for surgeries. We have been using this vet for several years, and I've been there recently with my own cat. When we got there 40 minutes before it opened, there was no physical line, but several people sitting in their cars. And this is not unusual. What has happened literally every other time I've been there is that people wait in their cars until one person gets in line, and then everyone usually zooms to get their spot. Then we all wait until the place opens up. So we're all waiting in our cars for about 20 minutes before someone got out of their car and got in line. Well, seeing that, I followed suit, leaving my mom and the animals in the car, making me the second one in line. After another 5 minutes, some of the other people, maybe about 3 people, got out of their cars and said very loudly, "Well, we should be going with who actually arrived first," and then proceeded to label where they thought everyone should be, with me getting 5th. I didn't say anything because that sounded like nonsense to me, and so they just kind of all stood off to the side and waited. Meanwhile, more people began to show up and get in line behind me and the first person. The group also didn't say anything to them and just talked amongst themselves. Now, when the door opened, they take 3 people at a time, so the lady in the line in front of me went in, a lady from the big group, and then I was going in as well. As I tried to walk in, one of the people in the group went, "Excuse me, I was here before you." But I stated that I was in line before her and I was going in. Well, she got angry, but I went in anyways. As I was trying to check in, the woman from the group that had made it inside tried to tell the employees that I had cut in front of someone, but I once again stated that I had been in line before her. The employees told us that everyone would be seen and it would be fine. Now, I feel a little bit guilty, but my logic was that I could have slept in my car in the parking lot, but if I didn't get in line, then that would have meant that I would get cut ahead of everyone. That isn't how the system works. I have arrived first on previous visits, but not made it to be the first one in line. No one has ever pitched a fit about line versus arrival ordered before either. So seriously, am I the jerk for going ahead of this group that was clearly waiting in their cars despite me being first in line? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, I might be the only person that thinks this, but guess what? The only person that really is the jerk here is the vet of this story. In my opinion, if you're standing in line, then guess what? You are first in line. None of this waiting in your car garbage. No, you've got to be in line waiting like everybody else, because this stupid vet doesn't make appointments. Like, think about that for a second. They only have a walk-in system that honestly is so dumb. But these people trying to stand off in this like subgroup and be like, no, you were actually fifth in line. We were before you. Like, that for me does not stand for a second, because I would be like, okay, that's cute, but guess who's physically in line in front of the door first? That's me and this other lady. So sorry, but you're not going to dictate whether or not I go in. So no, you didn't do anything wrong by standing up for yourself and going in, because this side group, in my opinion, easily could have shuffled in behind you and gotten in line like everybody else. But instead, they decided to be entitled in a way that is completely unfair. Am I the jerk for blowing up at my mother after she lost my money that I specifically hid from her? Because right now, she's blaming this entire incident on me, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 17-year-old male, and I had recently gotten $100 from a family member overseas on my dad's side of the family, and when I came back from my trip, I decided to hide my money from my mother. For context, in the past when I've gotten money, she's found every excuse to take it from me. For example, do I have a stain on some new pants? Well, that's gonna be $40. Did I forget to make dinner? Well, that's another $15. Normally, for people my age, $100 isn't that big of a deal, but I come from a strict immigrant household where I'm not allowed to get a job, and I never receive money besides on holidays or birthdays. Considering this, I hid my money in an envelope under my desk. I had to hide it well, considering how much my mother tends to snoop in my room. Days go by and I end up spending about $20 on food. I had plans to spend more until I came back from school one day to find out that my mom had done another spontaneous cleanup. And by this, I mean that she dug through all my things, making a huge mess, then leaving it there for me to pick it up. And surprise, surprise, my money wasn't there. When I asked my mom about it, she told me that she had thrown out almost everything from the bottom drawer, which is true because everything from that drawer was gone, including my money. However, I'm not sure if I should believe that, considering that my mom often hides my things, and she lies about throwing them out. I tried to remain calm as I asked my mom if she might have done anything else with it. In response to this, she began to get defensive and claimed that it was my fault for not telling her where I hid my money. Now to this, we both began to get more upset. Keep in mind, she had begun to blame me, she refused to apologize, and began to go on a rant about how I need to be more responsible. She insulted my intelligence, and then when asked if she'd pay me back, she literally refused. Now here's where I might be the jerk. We both began to argue as I then started to berate her with insults, and she did the same. Eventually, my mom began to look more and more defeated as I continued to rant about her. I honestly felt like I was at my breaking point. When I was done, my mom then gave me the silent treatment for the next 2 hours, even though she seemed okay in the morning. And yes, I did apologize, but I still feel guilty. She even keeps bringing it up, which makes me question if I was the jerk. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, this really pisses me off because honestly, your mom stole your money. In my opinion, she used this excuse of cleaning up to raid your drawer, find the cash, and throw everything else out. And that sucks because that really is what happened, especially based on what you're describing with her history of basically like stealing your stuff. And here's the thing, that money isn't lost. Your mother lost it, so she owes you that money back. And the fact that she's not willing to pay you back is mind-blowing to me. That really is so insensitive, it's not even funny. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. You are not at fault for your mom losing your money, and in my opinion, completely stealing it right from underneath your nose. Because she clearly had an agenda, and unfortunately, it does look like she's probably going to get away with it. My boyfriend is riding home with a woman who is in love with him, on top of them driving in an ice storm. And with all things considered, this really is a stressful moment in my life, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I don't want to crash out, but I'm honestly debating. I met my boyfriend, who we will call Ben, at his job a year ago. We began flirting at the bar, and I could hear a woman shouting his name from the kitchen. He ignored it for a while, and then the person calling him, his coworker, who we will call Tammy, tried to physically pull him away from me, but he asked her what she was doing and brushed her off. She sulked away, and I asked if they were dating, and he said absolutely not. I later learned that they previously had a fling, but he decided to just be friends because he didn't see a future with her, as she is extremely loud, has a problem overindulging in food and substances, and often does inappropriate things without thinking. She apparently did not take this well, told him that she wants to get married, and tried tried on multiple occasions to get drunk and stay the night with him, only for his friends to drop her home or for him to straight up ignore her because he had already told her countless times that for him, she is way too much. Well, a short time later, I ended up working at the same job as them. Though loud and a little obnoxious, I found her to be sweet at heart and even ended up planning a girls' day and hanging out with her a few months in. I mean, she had never tried to get with him while he was dating me, and she seemed to be over it, right? Well, everything was fine until I put in my 2 weeks notice and she started acting differently. She started telling me that she missed cuddling and watching movies, but then would add that she wants to cuddle me and not him, and other things that were clearly attempts to see if he would go along with it. The final straw was when it was just the two of us, and she said that she was going to miss me because now she won't see me anymore. And I said to her, "Oh, Tammy, don't say that. I'll still be around the bar. You'll see me. It's not like Ben and I are gonna break up or anything like that. If anything, you'll probably see more of me than usual, as we're moving in together and we eventually want to get married. I've never been so happy." Well, what was Tammy's response to this? For the first time since the very first day I met her, Tammy was silent. She was silent for 10 minutes. No congratulations, no, "Oh, I'm happy for you," just utter silence. I mean, you could cut the air like a cake. Tammy was not over Ben. On the contrary, she was celebrating him spending work time with her and not me, so I distanced myself immediately. Well, we are currently dealing with a snowstorm in an area that doesn't ever get snow. The area was not prepared. I mean, this is a beach for goodness sake. The roads are icy and they're not salted, and I can't drive on it in my car at all. Plus, my boyfriend's elderly father has been taking him to work in his truck. Well, I just received a message from Ben that he doesn't want his dad driving on the ice in the dark, which is fair, but he also stated that Tammy has offered him a ride home, and I'm completely okay with that as I can't get him and this time is just odd. I told him it's fine, and then he tells me he plans to do something that I find absolutely rude, and this is where I get angry. On the way home from his job, there are 3 separate grocery stores and a McDonald's. If he's hungry, there are plenty of places to stop. However, if you drive up further away from the house, there is a Sonic, meaning that if he were to get Sonic, he would have to go the opposite way on the ice, go through the twice as icy median, and then cross the highway with oncoming traffic to get the food. And with that in mind, take a guess as to where he told me he's going, because if you guess Sonic, then you would be correct. He offered to get me some, but I declined. It's just not sitting right with my soul. Between this making things even more dangerous and him just going along with not coming straight home, I don't know what to be more mad about. I feel like there's a boundary that under these specific circumstances, he has been allowed to cross, but now he seems to be dancing on this line, and I'm honestly not okay with it, because right now I'm seriously distressed and I don't know what to do. Yeah, I can see why you would be upset. It does seem like this is a sketchy situation, especially when he's riding with someone who has the hots for him. Like, that already sounds like a lot of stress, and I don't blame you for being so upset about this. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be talking to him about all of this. I would say to him, "Look, I didn't like what you did last night, and that really was upsetting. And hopefully with some good communication, all of this can eventually get worked out." A group of entitled Karens tried to mock and shame our server, all because this server had a nose ring that she purposefully covered up. But after listening to these Karens literally mock this woman and say that she has no chance of getting a job anywhere else, my friends and a table next to us decided that enough was enough, as we all collectively put these Karens in their place in a way that not only humiliated them, but also shut them down in a way that they will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so I went to brunch at a popular packed spot with tables very close together, and our server had a tiny flesh-colored patch on the side edge of her nose, covering up a nose ring. And this had to have been an extremely tiny ring because the patch was very small. Well, one table next to us had several young men that were friendly and asked us about the mimosa flight we ordered, and they were tourists from Germany. But unfortunately, the other table next to us was a bunch of old entitled Karens. So eventually, as time would tell, the server went to the Karens to get their drink order, and it was then that everybody nearby heard one of them squawk out and say, "What's that thing on your nose?" Now, I didn't hear the server's response, but as she walked away from the table, both of these stupid Karens started loudly discussing the kids these days and what a choice the server made to ruin her face. They were gleefully discussing how stupid it is, while also saying, "No wonder she's a waitress," since according to them, she wouldn't be able to get a better job with stuff in her face. The server brought their monster glasses of wine, and the ladies continue with their tirade about the younger generations and how they don't think about their consequences. Well, at this point, one of the German guys leaned close to them and loudly asked these Karens, "Why do you speak to your server in such a mean way? She is working to bring you your wine and food." Well, as this entitled Karen started to sputter with a shocked expression, all the guys started rapidly speaking in German and were clearly laughing and speaking about these stupid entitled entitled Karens. My family all started laughing and giggling in solidarity, and these Karens got quiet, clearly shocked, and then they went back to their wine. The second Karen of this group changed the subject to gardening in the spring, and we made it a point to loudly thank and praise our server every time that she came around to serve us. Wow, I can't stand people who act like this because seriously, there is nothing wrong with being a server. If you're making an honest living, it doesn't matter where you're working, in my opinion. A job is a job, and honestly, you can get a job anywhere that you want. And just because somebody has like a nose ring or a tattoo or something like that doesn't mean, in my opinion, that they're not highly skilled individuals. Her having a nose ring or not doesn't mean that she can't do her job, and it also doesn't mean that she can't get a job somewhere else. Like, these Karens don't know that lady's life. They don't know anything about her. So the fact that they're trying to be like, wow, kids these days, no wonder she's a waitress. Yeah, she might be a waitress as like a side gig, or she could be loaded and she's working as a waitress just for the fun of it. Like, there's any number of reasons why she's working in that profession. So yes, I'm so glad that these Karens got put in their place because this is so unacceptable. And as someone who's worked in the restaurant business, this really hits home for me because people in customer service, especially food service, deal with so much garbage it's not even funny, making comments like these unbelievably disgusting and something that no one should ever put up with. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled sister does nothing around the house, claiming that she's too tired from her job, which by the way is not nearly as hard as mine. And I honestly feel like I'm at my breaking point because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female and I live with my older sister who's 27. We live in the house that used to belong to our parents before one of them passed away and the other one moved in with a new partner. Since my sister was already planning to move in with her girlfriend and I was old enough, they ended up leaving the house to my sister and her girlfriend. Now, I won't go into the abandonment issues and the mess this caused, but believe me, it was a lot of bad stuff. Last year, she and her girlfriend broke up and things got tighter at home. I started working and became 100% responsible for paying for groceries and some bills like water and the internet. An important detail is that I worked as an in-office administrative assistant during peak hours, while my sister has always worked from home, doing Instagram posts for stores and other stuff like that. You know, the kind of story ads with promotions and stuff like that. One thing she always does is act as if her job is extremely exhausting. Now, I'm not saying it's not, but I would get on packed buses after a full day of work, come home, wash dishes without complaining, and make food, while she, who stayed home all day, would complain about putting water in the dishes that she dirtied. As a side note, I know these jobs can be tiring and fast-paced, but absolutely nothing will convince me that you can't spend a few seconds to put water in the frying pan. Now, I'm currently unemployed and I'm looking for a job, but unlike other days, I woke up wanting to clean and organize the house. I hung up the clothing that she asked me to, I took out the trash, I pulled some weeds in the backyard, and I washed the dishes 3 times. I even had to rush to take the clothing off the line when it started raining. Well, what did she do? She put the clothing in the washing machine and turned it on. On top of that, she left glass shards on the bathroom floor, which I almost stepped on by the way, and then told me to pick them up. But when I complained, she said she was too busy to pick up glass. She also complained about old food in the fridge, saying, I can't take care of your responsibilities because I work too much. Now, as another side note, at the time, I was hanging up wet clothing from the rain, which should have been 100% her responsibility, and washing dishes, which were supposed to be mine. But in her head, I should always help her when she needs it, and I should never ask for help with my responsibilities. Mind you, all the food that she worked to remove from the fridge were meals that she cooked, stored, and didn't eat. But in her head, I'm the one responsible for throwing them away. So anyways, here I am, taking a break and looking at memes, and job hunting online when she barges into my room to complain about a dish that wasn't properly washed. She tiredly explained how I should have done the task using water and soap, and said that she couldn't put her mashed potatoes in there because it was greasy. Then I go into the kitchen and this idiot left the dish dry without a single drop of water or soap. So yes, this truly was a venting diary, but honestly, I really just cannot stand my sister, and at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Man, I cannot stand when you have roommates or siblings who act this way. Seriously, what's the point of having a chore list or some kind of like responsibility listing if you're the only one actually doing your job, or even like picking up the slack where you're supposed to do it? Like, that is so frustrating, and I totally understand where you're coming from. So yes, in my opinion, your sister is incredibly obnoxious and very entitled, and the fact that she thinks this is somehow your problem is proof enough that she's only passing the blame to you when that blame absolutely belongs to her. My parents are incredibly controlling, as they literally want me to never move away despite me being offered a job job out of state that would change my life in a very positive way. Because right now I'm doubting my decisions and I'm second guessing literally everything about my life. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things off, I'm 35 years old and I got fired from my last job right before the holidays with zero explanation. 2 weeks later, I got an offer in Denver for $83,000, which is $23,000 more than my last job, but my parents are really discouraging me. They're saying things like, "It's too expensive. $83,000 isn't that much. Not enough to live anywhere else but here. It's too cold. What are you going to do with your house? Because if you sell, you'll never be able to afford another home. If you rent it out and the job doesn't work, you won't have a place to go back to. And whoever rents it will probably destroy your property. I mean, where are you going to put your stuff if you rent it out?" Basically, they want me to turn this opportunity down, which means staying on unemployment until something else comes up or that crap runs out, resulting in me staying put and looking for local jobs in Kansas. My dad sent me a job posting for an administrative assistant at a local university for literally $15,000 less than what I was making at my last job. I've been a project manager for 7 years, an admin assistant job photocopying some old dude's documents, arranging his folders, scheduling his meetings, and it honestly sounds like a huge step back for me. That is a job I would hate and I'm overqualified for. But he shouted at me that I was stupid for not applying for it. Meanwhile, my sister is turning 38 years old and has never moved out of my parents' house and doesn't drive herself anywhere. Literally, mom drives her to and from work every single day, which they have no problem with. Why are they not questioning what she's doing with her life? And it's like they're so hands-off when it comes to her life choices. What's crazier is their talk is making me second guess my new gig. I turned down a job in Boston 2 years ago because of this type of pressure, and now look what happened to me. I took a pay cut and then I got fired, and now I'm thinking about doing it again. There is no support for me whatsoever. They say I'm gonna fail and not have anything to come back to, and I am seriously torn up about their behavior and they're doubting me. Their words have made me feel awful about everything, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Oh man, I am so sorry you're dealing with that. Family pressure like this, and yes, I have definitely experienced this, can be some of the worst pressure ever. These are the people that know you the most. They know what insecurities to play into, and it all just leads to this entire situation being very sketchy. So if I was in your shoes, I would take that job and never look back. Because you made that mistake once in Boston, and it doesn't sound like you want to do that again. And honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would feel the same way. Because the way your family's pressuring you to stick around is super toxic, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not giving the dollhouse that I built for my wife over to my niece, as I had every intention for my wife to enjoy this, as this is something I worked really hard on? Because right now, my brother and his daughter are really treating me and my wife like garbage over this situation, and at this point, I do not know if I'm the one at fault or not. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I made my wife a replica of a house that's known to fans of a musician, but wouldn't mean much to others. It's about 2 feet tall, and it wasn't very complicated to build, but my wife has said a few times over last year that she thought it would be cool to have for little trinkets. She's like a crow with her trinkets, and I love it. She didn't know that I was making this for her, but I did sneakily involve her in its creation through having her make a couple of TikToks when we were out together so I could get the colors right, and she had no idea. Now, I was excited, so I showed a picture to my brother, and he told me it was cool, but didn't get the purpose. He showed it to my niece, who we will call Ava, who's 13 years old, who knew what it was and said that she wanted one too. So my brother then asked if I would give it to Ava for her birthday, but I said no, as it was for my wife. But I then said I could help make one with Ava, as it would help teach her some basic woodworking skills, which they don't really do in schools anymore, and I would really like that. My brother then said if it was so easy, then I could make a second one for my wife and just give this one to Ava, since her birthday was at the end of the month. But again, I said no. This was done specifically for my wife. He seemed to accept that, but then came back to me and said, "Isn't it a little weird to make a dollhouse for an adult woman?" I then told him it's not a dollhouse, it's just a fancy shelf. But he argued that makes it worse, because Ava would actually play with it. He must have gone to complain to mom about it, as he is the younger brother, because mom called me to tell me that it was stupid to give my wife a dollhouse. But again, I tried to explain that it's not a dollhouse, but she kept saying that's just so stupid. This weekend I was at their house, and Ava kept bringing up the replica house and laying it on thick with statements like, "I've always wanted one just like it." And she kept asking my wife why she wanted a dollhouse. And I said once again, it's not a dollhouse, but she kept asking why she needed one. I then told my brother that he was encouraging his kid to be manipulative, and I really didn't like it, so I was going to leave. He told me that I was dangling the house over her head like McDonald's and teasing her her about it and that it made me a bad uncle. Now, being a good uncle is important to me, and I do feel for the girl because she's a big fan too. I admit I have a blind spot for this because I don't have kids, and maybe I shouldn't have shared the picture with my brother to begin with. So am I really the jerk for not giving it to her? Yes, it was easy to make and I could make another one quickly, but still, this one was for my wife and not for my niece. What should I do? No, you're not the jerk. Ava and your brother sound incredibly entitled, with your mom absolutely taking a back seat to this idiot train. Seriously, you hit the nail on the head. These people are laying it on thick for literally no reason, and they're playing literally every angle possible. They're not only trying to be like, oh, please give it to me, I've wanted it my entire life, but also they're trying to guilt trip you for even giving a dollhouse to your wife, stating, oh, I would actually get some use out of it, and she's just an adult playing with a dollhouse. What's going on? As if them shaming you is somehow gonna make you hand it over. But then for me, the fact that this kid goes up to your wife and tries to start bothering her about it, that's the hard line in the sand that absolutely is not okay. So truly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. You were just trying to show off something that you thought was really cool. And the fact that these people try to turn this against you and make you the bad guy for trying to make something for your wife, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic. Am I the jerk for getting upset with my pregnant sister after she implied that my husband and I are not doing enough to help out with her baby shower? Because right now I'm still incredibly pissed off and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my younger sister is pregnant with her first child. The family is thrilled for her as she and her partner have been trying for a long time to get pregnant. When she announced it, she mentioned that she was having a baby shower and my sister and I offered to help out where we can. Now, for some reason, she took this as, oh, my brother said he's going to pay for the baby shower, and then decided to draft a guest list for over 120 people. I decided to text her one day and ask her what her budget was, and I heard nothing for at least a day. And it was then that my other sister and mom had mentioned that I had said to her that I would pay for the whole thing, but that was never something I ever offered to do. She never addressed it with me directly and said that she and her partner would pay for everything. I took charge of creating the invite, registration site, driving an hour away to book the hall, and put a deposit down. I offered to do the centerpieces, pay for the stroller, driving back to the hall to add extra time to the reservation because their archaic system doesn't allow people to book online, agree to pick up food on the day of, and answer every inquiry from any guest who registered in the system. My husband even offered to help out with the games for the shower. We saw my sister last week, and she texted me on Monday saying to me, if he doesn't want to do the games, then tell me so I can give it to someone else. Well, at this point, I finally messaged back, and I said that I thought her message was a little harsh, and if she was trying to imply something, then she should just say it out loud. She then responded by saying, fine, I'm disappointed by how much work you've put into this shower. And it's right at that moment that I lost it. I was objective and I listed everything that I had contributed so far. I also pointed out that I had never agreed to pay for a baby shower with 120 guests. I don't know much about them, but I assumed they were intimate events in someone's home and not something the size of a wedding. I mean, I had less people at my own wedding. In addition to this, she complains about other people in her life to my mom and sister, about how no one's pitching in. She even asked my mom what she's contributing to the shower, and my 70-year-old retired mother was taken aback by that comment and offered to cook food for the 120 people. She's been so ungrateful through this entire process and has since uninvited me to her shower and sarcastically said, enjoy your 40th, and removed me from my sibling group chat. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm still incredibly pissed off. No, you're not the jerk at all. Your sister really tried to be like, oh, you're gonna pay for everything? Okay, thank you. And then even after all the stuff you've done to make sure this baby shower happens, like booking the venue and answering all the questions, she seriously has the audacity to sit there and be like, you're not doing enough. And I know if that was me and I had put all this time into this and I was actively trying to be involved instead of paying for the whole thing, and someone said that to me, oh man, I would be so pissed off. I would not take that sitting down and I would go nuts. For her to say something like that at your expense, in my opinion, is so toxic. So no, you're not the jerk for getting upset because what she said to you is absolutely unacceptable. My partner decided to prank me while we were in Japan in February, so I decided to bide my time by getting some petty revenge when we returned back in December, as I got revenge in the exact same way that she had pranked me. Here's what happened. Early February last year, my partner and I traveled to Japan, which was in its winter season. Midway through our trip, one morning we woke up to the aftermath of what was an overnight snowstorm. Excited, we both ran outside, danced in the snow, and posed for photos. And one photo my partner asked me to pose for was me holding a snowball. Now, naive me, thinking it was a quick 5-second photo opportunity, happily obliged. However, she was taking her time, rotating rotating the phone and telling me to hold still, and after the snow started to attack my hands with frozen temperature spells, I started asking, "Are you done yet?" But my partner responds with evil grins and laughs before I realized what she was doing and dropped the pile of snow in defeat while she laughed and pat herself on the back for a prank well done. Well, fast forward to last month in December, and we're back in Japan in the same town, and we're both just walking along the streets and admiring the Christmas and New Year's decorations. I'm basking in the views when my partner calls out as she says to me, "Hey, look, take a photo." I turn around and there she is, smiling, holding a pile of snow. I then pull out my phone, and before I even do anything, my brain flashes back to that awful minute in February of 2024 when my hands were wronged and how this was an amazing opportunity for justice. So I aim the camera at her, I rotate the angle, and I say, "Hold still for just a bit longer. Okay, just a little bit more. Wait, let me get this angle just right. Oh man, the brightness of the snow. Let me adjust that real quick." And at this point, my partner is looking at me dumbfounded, wondering why I'm taking so long for what she thought was a simple 5-second photo. That is, until she spotted the devilish grin on my face, and then the penny dropped. She looks at me and says, "Did you just seriously wait 10 months to get back at me for that?" But all I did was smile with an evil grin. For the rest of the afternoon, she was in disbelief at how I still remembered what she did 10 months later, and how I had just got her back. But you know what? It was all worth it, because my hands got their sweet cold justice. Oh man, I find this story super cute. This is one of those like petty revenge situations where it really is harmless, but also you're almost chomping at the bit to make sure that that revenge actually happens. Like seriously, this is a long game situation that honestly I find to be fascinating. So yeah, I find this story super cute, and I think the fact that you actually pulled it off, in my opinion, is absolutely even better. Am I the jerk for refusing to give a refund to a person I sold my TV to on Facebook Marketplace, as they literally broke it as they were putting it into their car? Because even though I explained all of this to them and told them that it was working before they broke it, they're claiming that I'm a scammer and that I must be hurting for money. And at this point, I'm honestly so confused and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of backstory, I've been selling mine and my partner's things on Facebook Marketplace because we are moving into an RV soon, meaning that we won't have room for a lot of it. I've been trying to sell this TV that works perfectly fine for a bit now, and I have a video of it being turned on and off on the post. The last times I turned it on was this morning and it worked perfectly fine, with not even a scratch on it. My partner and I both carry it to our Kia Soul that had the seats down so we could lay it flat screen facing up to not scratch it or break it and transport it to the meetup place. Well, I sell it to this person, and my partner and I watch as this person is shoving a 55-inch TV screen down into the back seat of a Kia Optima that, by the way, has a car seat in it. I asked her 4 times if she needed or wanted my help, and she repeatedly told me no. So I got into our car, and my partner and I both agreed that this person just broke the screen of a perfectly good TV that I just sold them. Well, as time would tell, they texted me and told me the screen was broken, and I replied by saying, "Well, the screen wasn't broken when we gave it to you, so I don't know what to tell you. I used it this morning and I transported it to you screen up to make sure it didn't touch anything or get broken." Well, they called me a scammer, that I'm hurting for money, and that I'm dishonest, and that they were going to call the police on me if I didn't give them their money back, that they had my license plate and they were going to blast me on Facebook. Now, I feel like I did my part to make sure the TV got to them safely, and I tried to help her several times and I got rejected. This really is my first time experiencing something like this, so I really need to know, am I the jerk in this situation in any way, shape, or form? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. That lady's an idiot for not transporting that TV properly. Like seriously, it's like she wanted to damage the TV in some kind of way. And it's not like you just left her to figure it out on her own. You went up to her 4 different times and said, "Hey, do you need help? Do you need anything at all?" And she just kept saying, "No, I don't need help." And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? You clearly need help. You're ruining that TV and now you're trying to blame me for it. So are you the jerk for not giving the money back? Absolutely not. This lady broke it the second she got it, and that is not your fault at all, because you sold her a good working TV. And the fact that she broke it and is still trying to get a refund, in my opinion, shows how idiotic and stupid this person truly is. An entitled Walmart Karen tries to force me out of a mobility scooter, claiming that I'm faking my disability, resulting in me not only reporting her to corporate, but also reporting her to the police. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm an 18-year-old female, but sometimes people think I'm either 15 or 16 years old due to me having a baby face and severe acne. I have POTS, along with permanent nerve damage in my legs. This leads to me using mobility scooters in stores like Walmart if I can find them. And at this point, I'm sure you can see exactly where this is going. Now, I go grocery shopping with my dad, and he helps me with things that I might not be be able to get by myself, especially if I can't find a mobility cart. So we walk into Walmart and I see 3 mobility carts lined up against the wall. My dad then tells me that he's going to the bathroom, so I get in a cart and I wait by the shelves nearest to the entrance. An employee then asks me if I'm waiting for anyone, and I tell her that I'm waiting for my dad. Now, I'm not sure if she saw us walk in or not, but it also didn't click for me that she may be questioning about why I'm on the cart. My dad then comes out of the bathroom and meets up with me, and off we go. But before I get very far, the Walmart employee yells at me, "Ma'am, that cart is for handicapped people only." And when she said this, I was taken aback. So I stutter and I say, "I know, I am handicapped." She then replies to me and says, "You walked in here, didn't you? You can walk around the store." Well, getting more irritated, I tell her that the details of my disability are none of her business, but I can assure her that I am. She then walks over to me, turns off the cart, and tries to yank me out of it. My dad steps in and gets in between her and I, and he says to her, "What do you think you're doing? My daughter said she's disabled. Are you really going to interrogate everyone who grabs this cart about their health?" She then gets red in the face and says she's too young to be disabled. She's just being lazy. At this point, I thought my dad was going to start throwing hands with this woman. Well, we obviously attracted a crowd because security walks over. My dad and I explain the situation, and to her credit, she says exactly what happened. The security guard asks if I have proof of disability, so I get up and I start walking with my legs buckling and my right leg being bowed in. Well, apparently that's good enough proof for him because he just walks off. She then says to me, "Well, why didn't you do that in the first place?" But I tell her because I don't need to prove anything to a random stranger with no authority. Now this Karen seems slightly embarrassed and mumbles something under her breath and then goes back to where she was standing. And while my dad and I ended up still going on with our shopping, once it was all said and done and we got home, I ended up calling the corporate number and reporting her. Now I didn't have a name, but I had the times and her description, and I'm not sure if anything will become of this or not. Also, I filed a police report and I contacted the store manager. The officer I talked to said that he'd see what he can do about this, and the store manager said that he would get to the bottom of it and that there will be consequences. And honestly, I'm hoping that there actually are. And while I'm not sure that the officer took my report seriously, there does seem to be some kind of action taken. Wow, I cannot imagine being so bored with your life, especially working at Walmart, where you feel the need to walk up to someone and be like, "You need to prove that you're disabled." Like, what universe are we in right now? That is so unbelievably unethical and probably illegal. Like, I'm not sure, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that violates some law somewhere in the United States. But also just from like a humanity standpoint, who in their right mind would be like, "Well, if you walked into the store, that must mean that you're not actually disabled and that you're just lazy." Like, if someone really has that viewpoint, and I mean like seriously, that's actually what they think, then they have no business working in a forward-facing customer service position. What a horrible and cruel thing to say to somebody, forcing them to prove that they're disabled. And the same goes for security. The fact that they had to be like, "Well, can you prove you're disabled?" Like, at that point, I would have been like, "No, but my lawyer can." Like, are you kidding me right now? This honestly is so inappropriate, and I am so sorry that that happened to you. And hopefully this Walmart Karen really does get fired, because what she did to you is completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I overreacting for being angry with my husband over his mom crossing boundaries in our home? Because after I found out that she rearranged my entire house, I became incredibly pissed. And now I'm not sure if I messed up. Here's what happened. Okay, so I just got back from a long business trip, and 10 minutes after I walked in the door, I completely lost it. Here's the situation. While I was away, my husband's mom stayed at our house for a few days. She lives in another city, so this was a temporary visit. During my trip, my husband kept telling me how she was complaining about everything in the house. Now, we've been together for 2.5 years, and she actually helped me decorate the place before we met. And apparently, she kept criticizing the changes we've made to the decor since then. My husband told her it's none of her business and reminded her that she's a guest in our home. Also, this isn't the first time there's been an issue. During a previous visit, I woke up to find her cleaning and reorganizing, even though the house was already clean. Well, I immediately told her to stop and asked my husband to set clear boundaries. Fast forward to yesterday, and my husband went to the office. She was supposed to leave the house, lock up, and put the key in the mailbox. But when my husband got home, he found that she had reorganized everything. My closet, my makeup, his clothes, the pantry. She even switched the carpets in the room. To top it all off, she texted him a picture of the 2 new carpets that she planned to buy for us. When I got home, I started noticing all the changes, and I was furious. My husband was in a meeting, so I had a bit of time to process everything before confronting him, but when he was free, I told him that his mom is no longer welcome in our home unless I'm there as well. If I'm traveling and he wants to see her, then he can visit her instead. Now, I was upset that I made him call her and tell her that she crossed a major boundary, and he reminded her that she's just a guest and has no right to make changes to our home. But when that happened, she started crying and said that since she lost her husband last March, she's been feeling useless and just wants to help. So seriously, did I overreact? Am I the jerk for how I handled this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, anytime someone's trying to pull like the pity card, that for me is a huge red flag. And no, I'm not downplaying the fact that she lost her husband. Like, that really is horrible and I feel for her, but that doesn't excuse the fact that she rearranged your entire house. Like, if she wanted to clean up and be like, oh, let me spruce up the place before I leave, like, that would be normal. Even that is kind of a stretch for me, but that would be at least reasonable. But for her to turn around and change everything in the house to the way that she wanted it, like, that is crazy and there's no good excuse for that. So no, you're not the jerk here. She can cry and scream about this all she wants, but honestly, this was a big step over the line. So in my opinion, I think you had every right to put your foot down. Am I the jerk for getting mad at my wife after she forgot to pick up our son from basketball practice, all because she was distracted playing Dress to Impress on Roblox? Because right now, I'm still very pissed off and I'm not sure what to do. Here's what happened. So my wife and I have always tried to keep the housework pretty evenly split between us. I, for example, mow the lawn and do laundry and dishes, and she plans out the meals or cooks, or picks up the kids and drops them off as well. But lately, this has all changed because she's become addicted to a game called Dress to Impress on Roblox. If you're not familiar, it's a game where you have to dress your character in a themed outfit all before the time runs out, and the other players rate it from 1 to 5 stars. Now, this started off harmless, just a thing that she would do during her downtime before bed. But recently, she has missed crucial appointments and chores because of this game. I tried to be understanding and gently remind her to do things, but she would always say that she forgot or got distracted. Well, fast forward, and the big argument happened last night when she forgot to pick up our 9-year-old son from basketball practice, which ended at 6 o'clock. I had not gotten home yet as I had to work late, and our son doesn't have a phone, so I had no way of knowing the situation. I eventually got home at around 7 o'clock, and I realized he was not in his room. I looked around further, and I saw that he was nowhere to be found. I then walked into our bedroom confused, wanting to ask my wife where he was, and I found her on her iPad playing the game as always. When I asked her where our son was, her eyes grew wide, and I knew what happened without her having to say it. I then immediately got back into my car and I went to pick him up. And luckily, his coach had stayed after to make sure he was picked up safe, and I apologized profusely. Apparently, he had been calling and texting my wife, who was the emergency contact, and she just didn't even notice. When we got home, I immediately blew up at her. How could she be so addicted to a kid's game that she completely forgot our son? But now she's telling me it was a one-time thing and that I'm a jerk for getting angry, and I honestly don't know what to think. I do kind of understand her side of the story, as it has only happened one time, but she has to be a responsible parent. She can't just completely forget about our child, who has no way to get home on his own. So am I in the wrong here, or am I justified for getting pissed off? Oh my gosh, what is happening right now? This is beyond irresponsible. This is literally just straight up neglect in my opinion. You mean to tell me that this lady seriously went out of her way to play this stupid game and didn't realize that it was well past her son's basketball practice? And then she tries to be like, wow, you're a jerk. This only happened one time. And it's like, wait a second, this should not have happened in the first place. Because I know if I was in the original poster's shoes, I would be pissed off as well. I would be losing my mind. I would be so mad at her. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because there is literally no good excuse for her behavior. My girlfriend is incredibly pissed off at me after I bought a vanity set that she didn't want, resulting in her freaking out on me and screaming at me for getting it wrong. And now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that I feel like this is kind of an overreaction, but maybe I'm just wrong. For starters, my girlfriend's birthday was coming up, and I wanted to get her something really nice. I've noticed throughout our whole relationship that she does her makeup on the floor in front of a mirror, and it always looks so uncomfortable. She has complained of it several times, so I decided it would be a great idea to get her a vanity set. I did some research and I found a couple that she would like, but I knew she was picky, and so I asked her if she was planning on buying a vanity set ever. She showed me the vanity set that she wanted, and I made sure to add that set to my Amazon list. A few months went by and I was ready to buy the set, but I come to find out that it was sold out. I desperately looked at other sites and the manufacturer, but the set would not come for over a month after her birthday. And also keep in mind that I decided to buy it a month before, so this was definitely not last minute. Well, I still felt bad, so I decided to spend some more time researching what set to buy. I finally came across one that matched the style and color of other furniture that she had purchased, and it was more expensive than the one that she wanted. So I bought it thinking that she would like it even if it was not the one that she asked for. Well, unfortunately, I was completely wrong. My girlfriend's birthday finally comes around, and she goes off to her sister's while I spend 2 hours building this set right after work. work. When she finally comes home and I show it to her, I could clearly tell something was wrong. She was quiet and didn't seem too happy. She then started bawling her eyes out, saying that she hates it because it wasn't the one she wanted. Well, I explained to her that I couldn't get the one that she wanted yet, but if she didn't like it that much, I could wait for it to come back and buy it and sell the one that I just bought her. Well, saying that only made her even more mad and upset. She then went on a rant about how she hates birthdays and that I shouldn't have gotten her anything. Again, this vanity set matches everything else that she likes, and it wasn't some cheap set. She told me to simply sell the set and keep the money because she does not want anything from me on her birthday. So seriously, am I in the wrong for getting the wrong set? Because right now I'm incredibly confused. Wow, this is definitely an overreaction. I cannot imagine getting a gift on your birthday and freaking out like this and being like, wow, you didn't get the right one. I wish you didn't get me anything. How dare you? It's like, what in the world is going on? How is that any kind of an appropriate response to getting a gift? She didn't even try to listen to your explanation. She just said, oh my god, this is so bad. Sell it. I don't even want it. Keep the money. This sucks. Like, is this really that big of a deal that she can't just try and enjoy it and be like, oh, my boyfriend did the best that he could and this is really nice? Because what's the alternative? Laying on the ground and doing your makeup in front of a mirror? Like, seriously, what's going on? This sucks so much. So no, you're not the jerk for getting the wrong set. You literally did the best that you could in preparation for her birthday. It wasn't last minute and you really did the best that you could. So the fact that she's yelling at you and getting on your case, even though it wasn't the right set, in my opinion, is a red flag and something that you do not deserve in the slightest. My toxic former business partner tries to sell off our business venture without my knowledge of it, literally going behind my back to make a deal, also that he could pay off one of his debts. So I decided to get some revenge in a way that this guy truly never expected. Here's what happened. Years ago, at the age of 26, I entered a partnership in a small CD and music store with a man in his 50s who already owned another store. The partnership was meant to share buying costs and advertising. Once we opened though, I discovered he was skimming inventory and we had leased a much larger space than necessary under the pretense of him subleasing the extra space for his office, which by the way never happened. After 3 exhausting years, during which he continued his dishonest practices, the store went totally broke. We had around $25,000 in equipment and another $20,000 in inventory. Although he ripped me off, to avoid a legal battle, I agreed that we'd sell off the remaining inventory and equipment, and we would split the profits. I needed to get away from him quickly, even though my share would be far less than what he took from me. Now, my star employee and manager, whom my partner had since taken to his other store, informed me that my partner was negotiating a sale of everything the next morning, just to settle a debt of his. Well, realizing my partner intended to keep me in the dark, I hired movers to empty the storage space that we had rented. I took back all my belongings early the next morning, and as we were leaving, I saw the other truck arriving. Later that day, my ex-manager confirmed that the truck was from the debt collector, and their crew arrived to find the garage empty. They eventually ended up in court, each of them accusing the other, and it ended with my ex-partner still on the hook for his debt. I then called him up acting like I wanted the update on when we would sell the inventory and the furnishings, but he simply said that it was stolen, and then I hung up as if I was upset. I sold off the remaining equipment over the next year, slowly recouping part of my losses. Now, if he had just been honest with me, at least during our liquidation, nearly $20,000 of that would have been his. But in total, he took much more than that from me, so no, I didn't feel I took a thing from him. Fast forward to 4 to 5 years later, and I spotted him in a restaurant parking lot as I was driving off. He smugly asked how I was doing, fully aware of his wrongdoings. I then replied that I was fantastic. Then with a huge grin on my face, I said to him, so you still haven't figured out where that stuff went, huh? His smug smile then turned to fury as I drove off, telling him to have a wonderful day. And honestly, it feels so good to get some petty revenge on a guy that absolutely deserved it. Wow, I can't stand people who are dishonest like this. And I'm not talking about the original poster here. I think they were well within their right to sell things off and get as much money out of this as they could. I'm talking about the partner who literally tried to sell all of this off in some kind of weird, shady attempt to pay off his debt, but also avoid paying the original poster. So yeah, good for you for getting back at this guy, because the way he treated you is absolutely unacceptable. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for speaking bluntly to my ex-girlfriend, who's come back into my life after 4 years to try and get back in a relationship with me after she dumped me in a way that honestly devastated me? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I shared some hard truths with my ex after she expressed a desire for us to get back together, and I seriously need some outside perspective on this entire situation. For starters, the both of us are 26 years old, and we started dating almost 2 years ago and have been broken up for about 4 years. We met while I was in a compulsory language year abroad in Korea. Studying abroad was good for me, and it expanded my worldview. I met people I still call friends, and it helped me come into myself. I can't deny my ex wasn't a big part of that. She helped me transition and made Korea feel like a second home. She was my first love. I shared a deep connection with her, and we were in the same friend group for both the locals and the exchange students. Our relationship had challenges, but she championed that we were in it together. Our biggest challenge was her dad. He'll only approve of her being with a Korean man and not a foreigner like me. Now, family is important to my ex, and I didn't want her to have to choose. She said she'd try her best to convince her family and make them understand, but either way, she wanted to be with me. Well, she broke up with me over FaceTime. Her reason was that she couldn't continue our relationship past family opposition, how important family was, and at the boyfriend stage, I wasn't family. And it was then that I realized I had nothing I could say. Her mind was made up. Shortly after, she began dating another guy in our friend group who was Korean, and it really stings with how soon she would get together with him and who the guy was. He was an insecurity in our relationship because he was constantly called my ex's perfect match by others, and she would reassure me no matter what. It really hurt seeing them together and hearing about him being with her family, and eventually our friend group fell apart after we broke up. The breakup was a bad period for me. I loved her and really thought that I found my person. I was looking into leaving everything behind and staying abroad for her. I lost her, some friends, my mental health went in a slump, and my grades slipped, but I worked through it to a better place. I completed the program on a good note, and I eventually returned home. And the last I heard, she had gotten engaged to the guy. She then texted me out of the blue. She had gotten my number from someone in our old friend group. We exchanged a few text messages, and it wasn't anything major, and we ended up calling the next day and caught up. Talking with her again was strange. We hadn't talked since I moved back home, and it turns out her aunt and I are in the same city now. Well, she's visiting her aunt soon, and she wants to meet up with me. She went into how she's not with that guy anymore, and they were only married for a year as she is divorced now. She's been reflecting and has regrets, including about what happened with us, and it was then that she asked if I would be open to giving us another chance. Now, this was a lot to take in. I told her she wasn't saying anything different than before. She said we were kids back then, but not now. Well, I said she was right. We're not kids, but I don't trust a word she says anymore. I don't trust her. She told me that I wasn't being fair, but I meant what I said. She never stated how things would even be different for us now either. I can't reopen that door and be with her like I once was, only for her to upend everything again. Some of our mutual friends are reaching out and speaking up for her. They're saying I'm not giving her a fair chance and that I was too harsh. But I spoke from an honest place considering our history, but right now I'm honestly second guessing myself because at this point I don't know what to do. Oh man, I would not doubt that first instinct that you have. The fact that any of these friends are like, you're being too harsh on her. Like I would turn around and be like, wait a second, I thought I wasn't family. She literally said you're just a boyfriend and you're not my family. And my family pressure is more important than staying with you. And it's like, oh okay, where'd that get you? It resulted in you getting divorced after a year and coming back to me after 4 years. And sure, that might be harsh, but guess what? I am absolutely on the original poster side here. I think their first instinct is correct, and I just would not be very willing to accept anybody like this back into my life. Especially with her going to the guy that everybody was like, oh yeah, you should go with him. You guys would be a perfect match. Like if I was the original poster and I saw that, I would be connecting so many dots it's not even funny. Because then I would honestly understand, oh okay, you didn't actually want to be with me. You wanted to be with a guy that would make you look good in front of your family, not the foreigner that you thought you could love but clearly you can't because your family doesn't like him. And what's to say that's even going to change if you do get back with her? Like this lady is basically inviting you to open up that sore wound and try to be like, hey, let's try this one more time. Let me break your heart again. So seriously, no, in my opinion, I think you absolutely have every right to walk away and keep moving forward in another direction. Because let's not forget, this lady dumped you over FaceTime. And in my opinion, you have no time for anyone who's going to act like that. Am I the jerk for not responding to my friend when our final project was due and she had not done her share of our project? Here's what happened. Okay, so I have a college friend who we will call Anna, who's in the same program as me. We've always gotten along because of our similar backgrounds, but Anna has never been very responsible with school. For example, during a second semester group project, she procrastinated and had to do her part last minute. And after that, I avoided doing assignments with her, but I stayed friends since it didn't affect our relationship. Well, fast forward to December 2024, and we had a final project together, and Anna actually got to pair with me while I missed class due to work. Now for context, I was juggling 9 courses and had 2 part-time jobs, while Anna wasn't working and had fewer courses. We didn't put in much effort outside of class, and we split the jobs up. I would handle the presentation, concept development, and social ads, while she added text and finalized our visuals. Well, the night before it was due, Anna refused to help with the social ads when I asked about it, and I wasn't mad, and I figured that she would just finish her part. I went to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, only to wake up to messages from her at 3 in the morning morning saying her computer wasn't working and it was sending incomplete files. I had work at 8 o'clock in the morning and I couldn't fix them in time. At 10:40 in the morning, the time the class started, Anna texted me saying she had just woken up and wouldn't make it on time. And at this point, I got really mad. So I finished her part, which took me literally 5 minutes, and I ignored her phone calls and her text messages. She even contacted my boyfriend to find me. Anna then showed up just as I started presenting, and I quickly told her what to say. The presentation went well, but she left immediately after that. Afterwards, I apologized via text messaging for ignoring her, and everything seemed fine. We didn't talk again until Christmas when I sent her a holiday message, and she replied warmly, even saying that she missed me. Now, the new semester has started, and Anna isn't in the class we planned to take together. I've texted her a few times, including asking if she's mad, and she hasn't replied, even though she posts on social media and watches my stories. I know I was petty for not answering her that day, but everything seemed okay afterwards. So should I reach out again to apologize, or should I just let it go? Because right now this scenario is bothering me and I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, seriously, I do not think you should bring this up again. Anna is clearly a lazy group partner, and she did nothing but make excuses and put this off until the last second, basically forcing you to do all the work. And I honestly cannot stand people who act like that. Seriously, because then it makes your life miserable. You can't move forward with your project, and everything comes to a screeching halt if Anna even did what she needed to do. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for ignoring her and just doing her part, but also I would make sure that if you do have classes with her, you never partner with her ever again, because chances are Anna probably won't get through college, and in my opinion, this is not someone who's ever going to be helpful. My entitled boss hired 2 interns to replace me and demanded that I train them as I only had 2 months left to work there. So I decided to get some revenge by not only training these interns incorrectly, but also doing it in such a way where I could never get in trouble. Here's what happened. Okay, so I used to work in media intelligence, which is a really niche market in the country that I'm from. I started as an assistant, and I learned everything from scratch as I switched from the hospitality industry, which is a pretty big step, I know. I was eager to learn and was really interested in what they do as I was trying to get into media back then. First of all, as I learned everything from scratch, I got really good at what I do after just 6 months working there. I was in a 3-person team, and I had one of the best bosses and a really good colleague, which were veterans in the industry, and the both of them helped me a lot to get me where I was at. They left the company after just a year there, as upper management was just plain hot garbage. The company had 4 changes in direction within a year, and it was stressing my team out. They did ask me to leave with them, but with me being young and naive trying to prove myself, I declined. Well, the story is that after my boss and colleague left, it was just me and my team, and I was in charge of a few markets. I was asked to be on call for technical support and was not offered anything in return. At the time, I was pissed off, but I was also trying to prove myself, so I just obliged. I got really stressed out from working 13 hours a day for a few months at that point, and I kept asking my manager to hire more people as I can't be working like this, and it's honestly just stressing me out. Well, my manager went on and on, saying that they don't have the budget for it, so I just forgot about it and kept drowning myself in my work. One day, the CEO of the company came, and we had dinner as he was growing close to me, since I was the only one person left who actually knew the ins and outs of the old and new system that the company used. Now, keep in mind, this CEO is a cheapskate and will try all in every way to suck you dry. He asked me what I wanted to change in the company during dinner, so I started off with asking for 2 new hires for my team, but he just gave me the same answer as my manager, so I asked him for promotion and a raise, which was also declined, with him saying that I don't have the necessary experience yet. And at this point, I was pissed off beyond recognition, but trust me, it only gets worse from here. Now, as a normal person would expect, after working 13-hour days for months, you would need some kind of rest. I had almost 3 weeks of PTO saved up, and I really needed that rest. Well, the manager threatened to fire me if I took any PTO, as no one was able to do what I did. But you know what? I took my PTO anyways. I got well rested and all was good until I came back. When I got there were 2 new faces and I was pretty confused. So I asked my manager, who are they? And she seriously told me these were my replacements. She told me that my notice was 2 months and I had to train them before I leave. Also, she couldn't do anything about this, as I was the only one in the company who knew how to run the legacy and the new systems, so she couldn't say that I was not training them properly, as she didn't know how things worked. So with all things considered, here's the part where my malicious compliance comes into play. Since the manager did not know how things work, she told me to train the interns on the legacy systems so that they would know how the company was built up. And you know what? I did just that. She told me to strictly train the interns on the legacy system and that she will be dealing with all of the rest. And I thought to myself, sure, I could do that no problem. Well, once the last week rolled around, things really started to hit the fan. My manager found out that I had been only giving training on the legacy system, and I didn't give them my notes with tips on how to run the system that needed to be used for daily operations. My manager called in the CEO and the managing director to hold a meeting with me asking me why I hadn't trained my replacements properly, but I just told them that I did what my manager told me to do, to which my manager obviously denied it. That is, until I forwarded the CEO and the managing director the email specifically stating this that my manager had sent me. And after this, the call was promptly ended. After I left the company, I was patiently waiting for the call that was bound to come. Well, it was my manager. She demanded me to get back to work and said that the firing was just a prank, but I told them if they triple my wage, I will consider it. Well, they called me crazy and then ended that call as well. But now it's been 2 months since that call, and based on a good friend from another department, my manager is living in their own personal nightmare. Oh, I love it when managers get exactly what they deserve. First of all, the fact that you were doing the work of 3 people? That is so unacceptable and is complete BS. Because anytime work says, oh yeah, we don't have the budget for that, what they really mean is that they don't want to pay you what you're worth, and they would rather take advantage of you and have you keep overworking instead of, I don't know, paying you what you're worth. Managers or business owners who do that are some of the lowest forms of life you can possibly find. And what's the deal with you not being allowed to take personal time off? Like, did they really think they could fire you all because you're like, hey, I'm burned out and I need to rest? Like, that's not gonna make me want to come back. That's gonna make me be like, oh yeah, I'm definitely taking my PTO. But the icing on the cake is the fact that these people really thought that for some reason you would want to train your replacements correctly. Like, are you kidding me right now? What are they talking about? If that was me and there were no strings attached, I would probably quit right there on the spot. Like, that is honestly so unbelievably toxic. But the best part for me is the fact that the manager called back and said, oh, it was just a prank, sorry about that. It's like, no, it's not. It's only a prank because you're desperate and you have no other choice but to grovel back in front of me. So honestly, good for you for getting back at these people, because this entire scenario was absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend's parents say that I overreacted after their pit bull almost bit me in the face, saying that I made it up and that I was actually lying. But at this point, I'm honestly feeling like there's a rift in my relationship with my boyfriend, and I honestly now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 16-year-old female and I have a boyfriend who's 17, and let's just say that he is very family-oriented, which I do not have a problem with. However, I was raised in the deep south of Georgia, and my parents are very conservative and led the house with a heavy hand. They taught me independence so I wouldn't really need to see them as much when I'm older. Now, I don't judge my boyfriend, as I know that he was raised differently than I was. He can't recall the last time he got in trouble, never got his phone taken away, and was never spanked. He has a really foreign relationship with his family that I've never seen before, even in other people, and I guess they're just really close or something like that. Anyways, I've had problems with my boyfriend before, both emotionally and physically. He doesn't show much emotion when I'm upset, and one time he tried to get a little too close with me without me knowing or even giving consent, if you know what I mean. But he is a great dude. Now, my parents, on the other hand, have a bit of a harder time liking him since he is so different. I don't know if this is normal, but I pay for food for the both of us, and this is every single time we go out to eat, and I pay for his gas to come see me. For reference, I live about 45 minutes away from him. Anyways, we've been dating for about 8 months, and they have this pit bull who is about 3 or 4 years old, and he's been in a tiny metal fence enclosure for his entire life. He is unsocialized, never interacted with another person or animal except for my boyfriend and his family. I should mention, the last time this dog escaped his cage, it slaughtered their pet cat, and they just now decided that it would be a great idea to make him an inside dog. When I heard this, I was instantly worried. However, on Friday, I decided to sleep over. They had the dog locked up in the bathroom and then decided to let him out while I was chilling in my boyfriend's room. The pit bull instantly beelined to where I was on my boyfriend's bed in his room, and it jumped up on the bed. It then began sniffing me, and I was very afraid. And then out of nowhere, it started growling and lunging at my face and started snarling and barking. I then put my elbow over my face because I just knew that thing was gonna bite me. My boyfriend pulled the dog off of me, and he grabbed it so gently that he allowed it to escape his grasp and jump back on the bed. Thankfully, before it could reach me again, he then put the dog outside and just stared at me. I then began crying because this was a very traumatic moment, and he didn't even consider to comfort me. He then laid down and I put my head on his shoulder while crying. After this, I sat in silence, and he said, "Let me guess, you're never gonna come here again after this, are you?" And he said this in a very agitated tone. I then said I wanted to go home because I didn't feel safe, and that's when he got angry. I ended up calling my grandma because my dad would have lost his mind if I told him what happened. As I was leaving, his parents thought it would be a great idea idea to take the dog out on a leash as I was walking to my grandfather's car. I heard them laughing and giggling as the dog barked and lunged at me, and I was forced to run to the car because I was so scared. And of course, they didn't apologize to me. This turned into a big situation over a few days where I wanted an apology and they refused to give it. My boyfriend eventually told his dad how upset I was and asked him to apologize. Well, he messaged me on Facebook and basically said that I was being dramatic and that if his dog was actually aggressive, then he would be outside. He also basically implied that he thought I was lying about the dog almost biting me. And then I guess my boyfriend told them that my dad was mad, so they made him cut contact with my dad, which is insane because my dad has a right to be mad. And they used that as an opportunity to take a dig at me. They told my boyfriend that they always thought I was weird, and they didn't like how I never talked or ate his mom's food when we cooked. And then his mom called me a gold digger and said our relationship was one-sided. Mind you, my boyfriend has never paid for any of my meals, minus our first date, and I give him gas money for when he comes to see me. I literally pay for his food sometimes, so I don't know what she's on about. Anyways, after this, my boyfriend's dad told him that he didn't care what happens between us, because apparently he can't own up to being an irresponsible dog owner, and he said I blew everything out of proportion and that it really wasn't that deep. My boyfriend's mom has also never liked me or made any effort to speak to me, so I just feel like I need someone to tell me if I'm being a jerk or whatever, as there is so much other stuff that happened along with this, but it's all just way too much to explain, because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, I need to back up like 7 different paragraphs back. You're claiming that this guy's a good guy, and yet at the beginning you said he's made advances at you without your consent or like you allowing that to happen. Like, what are you talking about? That's not a good guy. That's someone that if I was in your shoes, I would dump immediately. And I hope you understand as the listener what I'm referring to when I'm saying, oh, this guy made advances at her, because what I'm describing is not a hug or some kind of like kiss, something a little bit more extreme, and I think you understand what I'm saying. So that alone is completely inappropriate. Like, this is not a good person, not to mention that his parents are basically idiots, because here's the thing, pit bulls can either be great dogs if they have great owners, but if they have awful owners like the original poster's boyfriend's parents, then guess what? That dog's gonna be a nightmare, a living, walking nightmare for anyone that isn't family. And that's the case for any dog. Like, you just look at any dog that's raised improperly, and you can see that, yeah, that dog is not safe. And that doesn't matter if it's a pit bull or a chihuahua. So not only are they pieces of garbage for walking that dog right as you're trying to leave and get out of there, but also the fact that they're trying to be like, oh, you're lying. That dog never did that. I don't believe you. You're blowing this way out of proportion. It's like, what is going on right now? How am I the bad guy because you're a terrible pet owner? So no, you're not the jerk, but I think you're a complete fool if you keep dating this guy. He's clearly using you for free food and free gas money. Like, this guy provides nothing to this relationship, and I can't understand for a second why you're still with him. So seriously, hopefully you're able to get out sooner than later, because what you're describing, in my opinion, sounds like an absolute nightmare. An entitled jerk in the parking lot impatiently flashes his lights at me, demanding that I get out of the way so he can take my parking spot. But after he did that, I got super annoyed and decided that I wanted to get some petty revenge by making this guy wait forever just to even consider our spot. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened earlier today, and it honestly was kind of weird. I was in one of the more crowded malls in my city where people go to, especially on a Sunday with family and everything. The mall is attached to a nice 5-star hotel, an apartment complex, a ballroom, etc. And I think you get the idea. Getting a parking spot is a nightmare, especially on Sundays, but more so than Saturdays. So I'm done with my weekly lunch and shopping round with parents, and then I get into my car. Now, I literally just got half of my body into the driver's seat before closing the door, and then this jerk came out of nowhere and came up from the corner and flashed his lights on me to signal that he wants my spot. Also, this is an underground parking lot, so him flashing made things brighter than it was outside. And when he did this, I was bloody annoyed and I mumbled to myself. My parents then asked me what that guy did to make me so annoyed, and I said to him, well, that guy flashed me with his lights because he wants my spot. But my mom said, oh, he's not getting our spot, he can wait. So here starts the waiting game, where this old jerk was about 5 meters away with his signal lights waiting for our spot while we're just chilling in the car waiting. The nail in the coffin was me exiting the car with me walking back towards the mall. This guy saw me and started turning his head for other spaces and went away within about 15 seconds. But when he did that, of course I walked back to the car and I got ready to move. Another car was immediately waiting for our spot, but the difference is that this guy was actually politely waiting. No flashing, no nothing. So we went away happily and shared a laugh together as we drove off, thus bringing to a close a family-sanctioned Sunday dose of petty revenge. Yeah, I would be super annoyed by that as well. You're literally just getting into your car and this guy's flashing his lights like, come on, I want to get in there next. And it would definitely come off as if he's being super, like, I don't know, impatient or something like that. So I can understand why you would want to make this guy wait, because if I was in your shoes, shoes, I would definitely be doing the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for leaving a party? All because my date refused to grab me a glass of water. Because suddenly this has become a massive issue, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I had been seeing someone that I met through mutual friends. We had had good times one-on-one, and when he invited me to events with his friends, I would contribute to the group dynamic by never showing up empty-handed and offering to grab drinks for others. Fast forward to a holiday-themed party with his friends, and my date and I planned to meet there and hang out afterwards. I spent the day cleaning my condo and preparing mulled wine to bring. During the party, people were getting drinks for one another, including me when I served the wine. At one point, I was sitting on the couch, blocked in by only my date on one side and many others on the other side. Now, I was tired and I didn't feel like tightly squeezing past people that I didn't know, so I asked my date if he could bring me a glass of water. He then shook his head and said, "Huh?" And he said to me, "No, I was just up, and you could have asked before I sat down again." Now, I was taken aback because I view small gestures like grabbing water as basic acts of care for friends, but especially for someone that you're dating. That moment, combined with a long day of preparation, left me feeling drained. Since the party was winding down and I didn't have the energy to engage further, I said my goodbyes and I called for a ride. My date offered to walk me out and said that he felt hurt that I was leaving. I explained that I needed to recharge, but that he was welcome to come over after the party. As we walked out, I jokingly mentioned how him not getting me water surprised me. He replied by saying, "Wow, that really upset you, huh? I have to be guarded about these things, you know." Later, we texted, but he seemed more upset about me leaving than interested in listening to why I felt drained. When I tried to call, he didn't answer. His texts were curt, and I eventually told him that I would like to decompress. 2 days later, I called to discuss what happened, and he said he'd call that evening but didn't reach out until 3 days later, saying to me, "I'm not dodging you, I've just been busy lately." And at that point, I was over, especially since he never acknowledged the misunderstanding or my attempts to resolve it. A month later, we finally had a conversation. He explained that getting me water felt subservient and was something I had to earn through time and being in the trenches with him. He also said that I didn't understand how busy his life was. For context, I work multiple jobs. So I calmly explained that grabbing water for someone isn't about being subservient, but it literally is just a small act of kindness. After reflecting, I feel his responses and handling of the situation were disrespectful, and it's indicative of a bigger issue. So am I the jerk here? What should I do? You are not the jerk, because this really is so weird. It took this guy a month to talk about this conversation. Like, this really is a small deal. It's a simple, "Hey, I'm sorry for the misunderstanding, I'll do better next time." But instead, this guy dodged the question for like 4 weeks and then comes back and says, "Okay, I'm ready to talk about it now." And it's like, that's way too late, dude. What are you doing? This really is an easy conversation. Is he seriously this bad at confrontation that he has to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna wait and talk to you about this in 4 weeks"? And by the way, nobody's that busy where they dodge you for multiple days just to have a simple conversation over a way that they kind of offended you. Because I think, in my opinion, the original poster's right. This really was a simple request. And it's not even the fact that he didn't do it. It's the fact that he reacted really strongly to this and dodged the issue altogether that makes me think that, yeah, this is kind of a red flag. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation, because I think the person you're dating is really immature, and this honestly could have been figured out incredibly quickly. My life turned into a living nightmare when every single parent who bought a tablet from our store ended up returning them all on the same day, resulting in the biggest refund we've ever had to give out. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm pretty sure I can't name specific brands or retailers, but suffice to say, this happened when I was working in the electronics section of a very famous toy store back when it was still a thing. It was not long after tablets were first introduced, and several companies had made tablets specifically for children, and they cost about $200 as opposed to the nearly $1,000 that the Pro tablets would cost, and they came with a bunch of popular games and educational apps built in, and of course parental controls. There was one particular tablet that was very popular that year. It was a big ticket item that Christmas, and we sold many of them. I would tell as many parents as I could that the device wasn't a simple turn on and play affair, because it would require an initial setup, so the parents could set up the account and access and everything like that. Well, let's fast forward to the day after Christmas, which was the most popular day for returns, and almost every single one of these kids' tablets that we sold were returned. It seems there was a pretty catastrophic issue, starting with the fact that pretty much all the parents had ignored the warnings about the device's need for setup and only opened it for the first time on Christmas morning. Imagine the experience of your kid opening their brand new tablet that they've been begging for months and wanting to play with it right away, only for it to not work because all the parental setup needs to be done first. So here you are trying to do this with your overstimulated and impatient child screaming at you to make it work. Well, as bad as that sounds, it got worse, as all of these parents trying to log in and set the devices up at the same time crashed the server used for account setup. So the brand new tablets were were essentially bricked. I can only imagine all the disappointed kids on Christmas Day. Now, this technology was relatively new, and being Christmas, I imagine tech support wasn't very helpful or even available. So pretty much all the people who couldn't get the things to work right just opted to instead return them. It was such a huge loss that I think the store company sued the other company that made the tablet. Now, the company did make one more tablet the next year, but by then the brand was poisoned and very few of them actually sold. The whole concept of children's tablets seemed to die out by the next Christmas season, and we just sold regular tablets in the following years, because people definitely were not going to do that ever again. Oh my gosh, I can only imagine how frustrating that must have been, especially as the parent trying to set up this device, and especially if your kids are bouncing off the walls. So yeah, if I was in that situation, I would absolutely get a refund as well, because getting sold a faulty or frustrating product like that is incredibly frustrating. Today, I messed up when I went in for a job interview, and I initially declined to go to lunch with them when they asked me to go, resulting in me not only missing out on the job, but also I apparently offended them by not wanting to eat lunch. And now at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So looking for a job had a recruiter hit me up about a good fit. My wife is pregnant and 2 weeks from her due date, so I'm not sure if it's a good time to switch, but I'm still always trying to keep my options open. I Zoom interviewed with a company once for 2 hours, and they liked me so much they flew me to their headquarters to meet their team. Essentially, I was as good as hired. Now, the flight in was rough, as the person in front was having their seat down, and my knees were grinded by metal while we bounced around in the air. After 4 hours, we landed, and I went right to the hotel room to sleep. I woke up the next morning, went into the office, and I started meeting with the team. The CEO says they had a schedule laid out with me to meet the entire team and asked if there was anything they could do to accommodate me. I saw on the schedule that it said go out for lunch, and my knees were still hurting from the flight. So I spoke up and I said, is there any way we could do a meet and eat here in the office? He said, well, I guess, and he had a confused look on his face and then excused himself and exited. The CFO followed suit and left while I remained behind with a revolving door of team members coming in to talk with me. Closer to lunch, the CEO stops back in and says to me, I really think you need to take the team out for lunch. It will be good for you to bond. So I instantly responded and said, okay, that works for me. Well, we went to lunch and I came back to keep doing some interviews. The CFO comes in at the end and says, we appreciate your time and thank you for coming in, but we are going to pass on you and look at other candidates. We already called you an Uber, which is right here. Please follow me. I then traveled back home after spending the rest of the day at that airport. I got a red eye back, I got home at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then I went to bed. The recruiter calls at 10 o'clock in the morning and says I have feedback on the interview. Apparently, there was some issue about lunch and they felt offended. I then explained what happened and said to the recruiter that you were great to work with and to please call me if another position comes up. But now I'm honestly so confused and I really don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, yes, you definitely messed up because there is no way a rough flight is gonna make me not go out for lunch. Like seriously, I get it, you were on the plane forever, but to walk in there and not at least try to go to lunch and fake it, like that for me is a big mistake. And I think you're right, you probably had the job right then and there, but because you didn't want to eat lunch with them, it probably like set them off. So yeah, I do think you definitely messed up, and hopefully things go better in the future. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.